What's
Sounds
up,
good.
Matt? Let's do
What's
this.
up?
Yeah,
Cheers.
we are just
Happy Thursday. Thursday, right? Yeah, it's
happy
Thursday.
almost St. Patrick's Day,
Ah,
which probably has different like meaning to you nowadays than it used to.
you know what's funny is back when I was drinking a lot, I would never go out on St. Patrick's Day because it was like too much.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Every day was St. Patrick's Day for me, dude.
I think about that a lot. Like where I live, as you know, in the summer it gets like crazy, and I
Mm.
pass by like all the bars with people waiting like 5 blocks to get in, and like I'm like, how did I used to deal with that nonsense? It's crazy the shit you go through when you're in like mating season, you know?
Oh man. Well, dude, I'll tell you what, like just being over in your guys' zone, I spent a lot of time over there. And there's that place over there in Belmar.
DJ
That's just yeah, that place is wild.
crazy.
My buddy's always trying to, Austin's always like, you're going to DJs today. And I'm like, dude, I'm not going. Like, I'm not going to go in there. I'm like, there's just no way.
Yeah, I mean
And they'll be like, you know,
it's
yeah,
like
it's
going to
whatever.
the zoo, you know? It's like you have to like look around and be like, wow, I'm on like a safari right now.
Yeah. Like, I know that it's like, if you're at the right time in your life, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Right. I'm sure it's
yeah,
a lot
yeah,
of fun. But I just haven't been there for quite a while. I just can't, yeah, I can't deal with, well, first of all, just like that kind of a crowd
yeah.
is like anxiety inducing for me. And then just that kind of scene. And then there's the whole like, those meat market situations are always like a little bit sketchy because there's guys that go there to fight,
Right.
so there's like fights. If you go to those one of those meat market situations, like with your girlfriend and like she's hot, then or what, you know what I mean? Like
Wait, but
those,
is the whole fighting thing something that actually has ever been like an issue for you? Doesn't your size kind of like limit that
no,
or
no,
opposite?
man. Lots of guys they want to take on the big guys.
Really?
Yeah, like, and it's usually the
Wow.
guys that can fight really well.
Right. Just to
Like
kind of
the smaller guys that are like training to fight or something, like they'll look for. I've been in those situations a lot, and I always have to just be like, my whole thing is just don't ever fight, no matter what. Well, at least that's what it's been for since I was in my 20s. It used to be fight all every time,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and then I turned that off. Like, I don't know. Last time it happened was really bad, so I just like, I cut it. I was like, that's not, I remember I was a young man, and I made the decision like that's not acceptable behavior, like under any circumstance. I mean, of course, there's always going to be like, there's going to be exceptions. Like if somebody, I don't know, everybody can get their switch turned. Like somebody messes with your kids, or your wife, or whatever, you're gonna roar, right?
Uh,
But as far as like most of 99% of situations, it's like never worth it. There's no winners, you know. So
it's interesting to hear that
yeah.
because I always assumed, me being a short guy, I always assumed if I was Grundy size, like no one would ever fuck with me. But you're telling me not because like,
Well, it's not like it happens a lot,
right.
but it does happen. And when it does, like every single time that it's happened, um, I'm usually staring at somebody that's like, I can't tell,
Right. Like
if they're
you see
like,
like cauliflower ears or something, and you're like, I don't want to fuck
well,
with.
that's a definite no.
Yeah.
The thing, my buddy, so you remember Tito, he was really into
Yes, totally.
jujitsu. Yeah, he was into jujitsu. And he said something to me one time that like really resonated. He said, if you've even had one fighting class, you could beat up lots of people because most people just have no idea what they're doing.
True. That's
So like, yeah. So like, if you're like living that life and training every single day, like you're formidable, dude, like
yeah.
big time. And you're supposed to learn, the martial arts community on a whole seems like it's like you learn like the discipline, and it's like you're like this powerful monster, but you keep it at bay, kind of a thing. And that's kind of like
Right.
that's the trick, right? And they're really proud of that or whatever. But some of them are just like not that way at all,
Right.
and they want like they like go and train, and then they can't wait to go out to the bar and show it off, whatever, at a bar
Yeah.
fight or something. It's like, and
That's like
those guys are out there.
it's like something I think about a lot. 'Cause, I got we as dads, you know what it's like. Like when you have kids, it's almost like almost like relive your childhood. Then it's also like you're almost like an avatar inside your child, like you're imagining what life would be
Yeah.
like, and then you can't help but like look back in your own life, decisions you've made, regrets, things you wish you didn't do, things you wish you did do. And it's like both my boys I kind of like pushed into jujitsu because like I was always kind of like just nervous of that. But nowadays it's like you said, like everyone knows how to fight. You know, back in the day, I used to get in fights in school and it was like you punch each other, you go to the principal's office, that's the end of the story.
Yeah.
I remember the moment when like that was no longer the situation. Like I got in this fight in like 8th grade where I got detention for like 3 months in a row. And I messed with like this one kid who was like picking on me because I was always a short, small guy. And he started messing with me. And I pulled out this like homemade Chinese star that was made out of nails. Like put it in his face. I had no fear. And we ended up getting in a fight on the bus the next day. And like I think that moment, and then his crew, his posse kind of came after
Mm-hmm.
me. And it was kind of the moment where I'm like, all right, this is no longer like we're just gonna rough it up. This is like someone could do something really dumb. Someone could actually, and then you start hearing about kids that have guns or knives or drugs are
Yeah.
involved. And then at that point forward, I never got into a fights after that. But before that, I
Yeah.
was always like I was taking karate. I was kind of just looking to kind of whatever prove myself as not being
Mm-hmm.
the guy you could pick on. But as my boys are growing up, it's like I want them to have that confidence to not use it, but to know what to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like, you know, it's like with anything, any kind of skill, it's like if you're truly like badass at one thing, the last thing you'll like, if you know somebody that's like a badass painter or a badass whatever, author, whatever, and they're truly badass, the last person you'll ever hear say that they won't, what I'm trying to say is they won't like ever
Right.
say that they are. They don't have to. It's just like known.
Right.
And so if you can get to that place physically, then that's kind of how it goes. It's like you don't have to prove you're such a badass. You don't have to prove it to anybody by beating them up. You don't have to prove anything to anybody,
Yeah.
because it's just like, no, you know that. And that's unbelievable confidence to have for
Hmm.
anyone.
Yeah.
I'd say maybe a male, especially because I think that like physical violence is like more like on the table for men than it is for women, you
Totally.
know?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, dude, like Juniper's like she's very, very strong for her age.
Hmm.
And so she's only 5. So I think I want to put her in. Well, Juniper's got like a pretty heavy language delay. Like she's 5. She's gonna be 6 April 23rd. And she talks like she's 2, I'd say.
Okay.
You know, um, but completely super advanced in other areas. We have like one of those situations like where like one area is like super lacking, and then
Right.
like she can read, she can do math. She's nuts. So as soon as the language comes along a little more, which it will, I mean, everybody that we take her to is like, oh, just be patient, it's coming. Like, um, but once what I'm saying is once the language comes online a little bit more, I'd love to get her into jujitsu. And plus, her name's Juju. She could be like Jujitsu.
There you go.
Fits right in.
It's very cool to
But
it's a cool art form. I actually started getting back into it myself. I hadn't done it in 20 years. Like I started
mhm.
doing it when like the first UFC came about, like a long time ago.
Yeah,
And then I kind of fell
cool.
off and just stopped. But it
Yeah,
kind of motivated me to get back into. Um,
I love it, man. I haven't done it. I took like 6 months worth of classes one time, and then there's been a few times when we're down in Brazil and I got to go. Like Romeo, because Romeo's like a fifth degree black belt.
Badass.
Oh yeah, like the guy's just you'll never hear him say that he's a badass. He
Right.
doesn't have to, you
Right.
know. But he took us to some den of like killers one time. We rolled in and all these guys were I was like never so intimidated in my life. These guys all look like they're built out of bricks, dude. And all they do is just sit in this dojo place all day long and beat each other up.
Yeah.
Like, and so we put our gis on, and I remember just being like all kind of terrified, and like went in there and got humbled. And then so I came home and but I felt like I had like a little bit of like a natural grasp of it just because of how much fighting I watch. Like that's my sport. I watch all of them. I really keep up on that. And so I joined a jiu-jitsu um, academy in Anaheim, and the instructor was an Asian dude, an Asian fighter, probably a lightweight when he
Yeah.
fought, 145, something like that. And then all of his students were like around the same size. So I'd go to this class and like be this huge guy. And so I'd always have to like wrestle with or roll with the teacher, because it was just like not fair. Like even if those guys were better at it than me, I just weighed so much they couldn't do anything.
Right.
And so it was 6 months of like rolling with the instructor and just getting my butt kicked, dude. This guy was so gnarly. At one point, I was like on top of him. I was like, "Oh my gosh, am I actually going to finally get him?" And he did like this move where he put his foot underneath my pelvis and then
Right.
threw me up into the air, and I like did like clunk.
It's incredible, like when you see like the level of fluency that people have with anything for that matter, right? Like,
Yeah, for
um,
sure.
speaking of like giant people, we started watching that Last Dance documentary on Netflix, the about the last season of the Bulls with Michael
Oh,
Jordan.
right.
Have you seen that?
Okay, yeah. I haven't seen it. No,
Unbelievable. It is like
really.
beyond belief, unbelievable. Like you feel like you're watching a real life Rocky. Like they go into all their stories and stuff, but just like seeing like the level of fluency with anyone's gifts, whatever they are, is
Mhm.
just so next level. It's
Well,
unbelievable.
especially when you got Michael Jordan in there, who's
Yeah.
like kind of like a once in a millennia type of
Uh,
mind, like sports mind, like
right.
confidence, like the confidence.
Yeah.
It's not just like an ability thing. Like obviously he had like next level ability, but like to be able to like walk into like an elite situation like that where you're like amongst the absolute best in the world. It's like the best team in the world is taking on like I guess the second best team in the world or whatever it is. Like when the finals come together and everybody in there knows what they're doing, and to be able to walk out onto a court in front of all those thousands of people, all those millions of people watching, and like not even be phased and just be like, I'm taking these boys to school. Like that's crazy to me.
It's crazy because at the early part of the documentary, it's like when he's like in high school, going into college and stuff, and it's like he wasn't even that good, right? Like for his peers, he wasn't that good, and it's like a switch goes off, and it's like when I see that, or when I see people like big wave surfing or just doing anything crazy, I can't help but like put myself in that mindset, and I think like, what's like the artist equivalent of that, and like why am I not
Well,
doing it? Why am I not there? Like, do you ever think of like what's the music equivalent of those?
oh, dude, I obsess. I
What is it
obsess.
though? How do
Okay,
you?
well, here's where I'm at right now. This is
Yeah,
just where I'm at right now. It's funny. It seems like with all these type of ideas that we have to keep ourselves going and keep ourselves motivated, and mostly to keep ourselves from quitting. It
yeah,
seems like it's always kind of like somewhat the same ideas, but like I have to put like a new coat of paint on them every so often to kind
right,
of like update it to where I'm at in my
yeah.
life at that time. You know what I mean? And so right now I'm rolling on a thing I heard Rick Rubin say, which changed my life. And let me just say, like, I got all the respect in the world for Rick Rubin, but I'm not a huge fan of the records he makes.
His
You know,
podcast is great though.
oh, he's a genius,
Really good
and
podcast.
he's a genius. It just happens to be it's a stylistic thing. Like, I'm not a huge Peppers fan. I like the old Beastie Boys records.
Okay.
You know, and it's not because I don't think these guys are good. It just happens to like not necessarily be my thing.
Okay.
Anyways, that being said, he said that the 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 best way to go about being an artist is to only let there be one audience member, and that's you,
Mm.
right? So you create for yourself 100%. You have to like it. It's what you want to hear. And then, and then once you do that successfully, then you put it out to the world. And if the world loves it and you make millions of dollars or whatever, cool. If not, go get a job so you can support yourself to do that.
Mm.
And it was so cool to hear, because it's like, oh, you know what? I mean, obviously there's levels of acceptance from the population, about like, how you're going to be received to the public or whatever. But it doesn't make your art, if it's legit, any more important than somebody that gets no recognition.
Right.
It's like really important because it's an individualized, it's an authentic, like harvesting of the art that only that person could do. And if you're doing it, if you're making a set, like I'm going to make this pop song and I'm going to follow this form, and then that way, maybe I can get some spins and make some money and all that kind of stuff. And I understand why people do that and why that's such a big thing. There's money to be made. People, I mean, I need to make money too, right? But for me, like with my music now that I'm going to do like for myself that I put out, under Matt Grundy or whatever, like that's the roadmap now, like it changed everything for me. It's like, oh, okay. And it doesn't matter, like, as long as I really think it's cool, like I don't see any holes in it and I dig it and I love to listen to it, which is easier said than done, by the way. Excuse me. Then it passes the test, and then you let it out there, and then and it kind of like almost like lets you off the hook a little bit too, as far as like response, right? Because it doesn't hurt as bad that nobody really listened to it because you did it the way according to. So, anyways, that's kind of like where I'm at now. It's like I'm going to be the audience for my music,
I do
and
that.
I'm going to make it like as dear to me. You got to do that, right? Or at least I know that you definitely probably have paintings that you do that on, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then sometimes you have a niche. You have a niche that you have to cater to, right?
This is something I think about and I probably talk about too much because
right
when you get to a certain point, especially when you're a parent, right? Like you're number one, you change. It's undeniable. If you're doing parenting right, you change. Some people
100%.
Some people don't. But for me, so you change as a person, which inevitably changes your art, which inevitably changes your process, which definitely changes your schedule. So a lot of things like shift, right? But then it's like like you said, if you're not yet there, you can get a job and then just like serve your talent. But if you already jumped and you're in midair and you need a parachute and you already have a mortgage and you already got kids, then you kind of sort of have to make sure you're still paying the bills. And some of that stuff,
100%,
not necessarily something that fills your soul necessarily. So then you got the option of either figuring out a way that what you're doing fills your soul or slowly shifting the wind to bring you somewhere that might,
or you just do both.
Or you do both. If you
do both.
Or you do both.
If you can. For me, it's like I'm able to split it up kind of easy. It's like I'll make my money playing other people's music the way that they want to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I do. That's how I make my money. I go on tour with people that hire me to come play bass or guitar or whatever they want me to do. And then when it's time to make records, I'm giving all my honest opinions. How many of them are going to get taken, or I mean, I never shut up in the studio. I'll drive people crazy.
I'd see that.
Because I like it's the last thing I ever want to do is be quiet when I'm hearing something. I'm not saying that you have to change it. Just I'm speaking up, right?
Totally.
But that being said, I'm not like the main creative force, I guess, behind it. It's always somebody. It's somebody else's name on the project. So ultimately, they got to be happy with it. So that's how I split it up, and that just happens to be how I make my money. Like the Matt Grundy project, it pays worth shit, dude. Doesn't pay anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'm lucky if I get enough spins all year just to like pay my TuneCore fees for the next year to keep it on there. You know what I mean? Right. That's where I'm at with my solo stuff. And so, but that being said, though, it's kind of like with all those records, I always had other people in mind, or this image of me that I wanted to kind of like simultaneously create and promote.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I'm not going to do that anymore. It's just going to, from now on, when I put music out, for me, it's going to be me sitting in front of the speakers and making it sound. It's just all about what's coming through the speakers, man. That's it. That's where it ends.
Love that.
It's me and the speakers. Yeah. It's so simple.
I try to do that too, but it is hard to kind of like spread the time around, like I feel like, speaking of the Michael Jordan thing again, because it's kind of fresh in my mind right now. Mm-hmm. Watched an episode last night, but like it really shows if you focus on just one thing, how good you can get, right? Like one, and with us, maybe that means like one genre, or maybe it means one project. I have no idea. Like for me, it's like, I genuinely, like when I get inspired, like it comes from so many different places. Like I wish I just had like one little muse that was like, here's your next painting. But it's like, it's often like one day I just really genuinely feel like painting this one subject matter or this one style, and the next day it's almost like a different artist. It's still me. It still feels like me, but if you look at it, you're like, where's the consistency, right? And it's like when you see, like I was talking to G Love about this like not that long ago, and he was saying like in his old albums there was not a continuity, and then he was saying what like one of his more recent albums how he like really intentionally kind of made everything fit. And I think that like intentionally making stuff fit makes sense, but my artist brain doesn't seem to work that way unless I force it, which I don't like to
Yeah,
do.
me neither. Dude, you could think about it in two ways. You could think like, oh man, I need more continuity. But then at the same time, it's like, dude, versatility is something people go after
Yeah,
and can't get. And if you're versatile, then you need to embrace that,
right.
you know? I mean, that's what I'd say. I spend a lot of time in the studio making music when I'm home. I'm dropping in, I'm doing 8-hour days. And most of the stuff I make, people are never going to hear. And mostly it's because I'm like exploring.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like I'm like, it's like I'm constantly doing research. Like, okay, I mean, because it comes down to everything. It's like, how am I gonna put the kick drum mic? How am I gonna EQ the kick drum? Okay, now are we gonna put more overheads in and get more of the room sound, or are we going more for a close mic thing? What would it sound like if I did like a room sound jazzy drum set, but made like a hip hop beat, and then did like organ bass, and then played like a blues solo, like all this kind of stuff, just like searching for like some sort of I don't know. I don't know what I'm even looking for, dude.
right. I get
I
it.
can't even say that I'm looking for that like aha thing because I'm not. I'm not looking for anything. I'm on a journey. It's about the journey, like 100%.
Yeah.
But you hear a lot of that. That's like a very common thing. I think right now amongst like online influencers and stuff is a lot of people are saying it's all about the journey. Well, the old way of saying it is all about the journey, not the destination,
Hmm.
right? But now it's like seems people like there is like not a destination. It's like just journey or the process. It's just the process. The process is the reward. You
I think
know,
a lot of that is
and I think that that's
a lot of
100% true.
I think a lot of that what they're talking about, the influencers, I think a lot of it's bullshit.
Yeah,
I think when I see people say stuff like that, it's about the journey that you see on social media. Like they're creating a narrative on social media. Like it's about the
for
social
sure.
media journey. It's not necessarily about the content behind it. It's more, and that's like it's such a hard. It's the best world for artists and musicians to live in, and it's absolutely the worst. Like I kind of miss the old days where you really had to like earn it, and you really had to like really
Yes.
work it, and like really network and really meet people and really do things different. And then when you finally got some attention, you knew it was really fucking earned. Now it's like
Yes.
you work your ass off and it's like the algorithm doesn't even see you. It's like, hello, I'm right here, you know?
I know. Dude, you have to pay Instagram just so your followers see your posts.
Yeah.
You do. You have to boost it. And then all they do by boosting it is just show your own people.
Yeah.
Make sure all your own people see it.
Such a
It's like
scam.
that's insane to me, you know? Um, yeah, and I mean, like, don't even get me started on the whole like, streams thing and how they pay for streams. It's like, yeah, anybody, I could pick up a guitar right now on this Zoom thing and record a song and then grab the audio and put it out and put it on Spotify. And so anybody could put basically a poor audio, whatever, out. But the way that they're handling that is if you take all the spins Spotify has all year, every artist, every spin that happens there, they put it in like then you make it a pie. Then the bigger part of that pie your spins represent, you get paid more
Hmm.
for those spins. So the guys that are hanging out down in the, 5, 10,000 spins thing, they're getting like fractions per spin of what, say, like a Kendrick Lamar that got a billion. So those guys are killing it. So that's kind of like, it's kind of like the record industry is kind of like back in a way.
Yeah. It's just
You have to have a big motor behind you again. In a long time that wasn't the case. So it seems like maybe the big machine is back, you know. Um, but I don't know, man. It's just crazy. Every single day, it's like I try not to ask myself this, but every single day I ask myself, like, what am I even doing? You know what I mean? It's
I
like,
wish
wow, I've been doing this because I've been doing it for so long. What's next? Like what now?
I didn't know
Like
what
I
you,
used to,
but I definitely know what
yeah,
I feel like that a lot. Like some days I'll have like big wins and I'm like, all right, I'm in the right mindset. The law of attraction is working, everything's gonna, and then the next day I'm like, dude, I'm like, how old doing this? Like, what am I doing? Like, and it's weird because like as you well know, which I'd love to hear you riff on, it's like with on social media and then with you with like gigs, people probably see you touring around the world and doing cool shit and blah blah blah, and people see me doing a collab for this person or doing blah blah blah, and they think like, wow, you're probably fucking rolling in it, you're the epitome of success. And meanwhile, like, let's go back a couple of years. I remember us talking when like in the middle of the pandemic, actually the early part of the pandemic, we had a conversation, and just I don't know if it was I don't remember if it was a phone call or he was checking in on text, but it was like it was it was bad, and there was like some
whew,
hard times. I'd love to hear you.
yeah.
You have such a bipolar experience with your career. Like
Well,
you were
dude, that's
telling me
funny that
about
you say that because
you were telling
yeah,
me about like you had to like dig holes or do some manual labor, and then the next thing you know, you're back on tour and everything's back to normal, like all across the board.
yeah. I didn't have to go. What did I have to do? I did a lot of manual labor, but I actually just rebuilt my own studio. It was all stuff over at my parents' house. I wasn't. I made it through playing somehow or another. Um, one thing I'm good at, dude, is I'm really good at being poor. That's what being a musician has made me like. My being broke skills are like huge. Like I can really nickel and dime. You know, um, I'm really, really good at having no money. I'm trying to get good at having money, but that's
Mm,
like a whole different thing. You have to have it for a extended period of time. I feel
right.
to like get good at it, and I just have windows of having money, So like, um, but like that's definitely like it's always been the thing, and it's been something that's been uh, increasingly stressful. Is now that now that I'm a dad and I have I have like a real family situation going on where I have to be I'm the only provider, and so it's like that ebb and flow can't be as drastic anymore.
Mhm.
Like there's no chance I cannot let things go down to zero. I just can't. I have to stay way above water, like much more above water. When I was single, I'd let myself just tap out, and then I guess what am I gonna do? Shit, I better go. I used to run the side hustles, searching on offer up for something that I could flip real quick,
Yeah.
all kinds of things that I do. But now I have to be, even though I still buy and sell stuff, and there's like little side hustles and stuff, but I just got to be more responsible, man, and I got to make sure that I'm not doing anything for cheap. Like I really feel like you're gonna get the gigs you'll take, you know. So if I start playing at the at the bar up in Wrightwood for $75 a night, then I'm gonna get more of those gigs. Like I can't do that. I can't go play 4 hours for $100. Like last time I went up there, I did it just because it's like I live where I grew up, so there's like a lot of nostalgia.
Yeah.
Um, and these bars are where I cut my teeth. Like there's a place down here off 138 called the Big Rock that I was like the house drummer at when I was too young to even be in there. So I'd have to go sit outside on there's big rocks outside. I'd have to go sit out there in between breaks, and sometimes it'd be cold and whatever. And I did that. I did that from like 15 to when I moved out when I was 18.
Yeah.
Um, and we would do like 100 gigs, probably 100 gigs a year there. So like I have like an attachment to these places, but I can't show up, and play for 4 hours, and then at the end of the night, like my pizza wasn't even free.
Yeah.
It's like I can't do it. Anyways, that was a long, long way around to tell you, like, you have to make sure that you're pricing yourself right and you know your worth. And that was a hard lesson learned for me. You know what I mean? Like for a long time, I kind of had the mindset like any work you get playing music is a blessing because man, it's so hard to make it in music, and I'm so lucky to be doing it. It's like there's not a whole lot of. I mean, there is luck involved, but it's like, dude, I've also pounded this thing out
Hmm.
from since I was 20. Well, shit, since I was 15, I was pounding it out there down at the Big Rock. You know,
Right.
it's like this isn't something that just fell into my lap, dude. Like when I was like 20, 20 to like 24, I was living on couches and like in my car, you know? So whatever. I just, I'm, I'm going to be 44 years old in June. And if you want me to show up to a gig, you got to have some money. Not crazy. I'm not talking about Sting money.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about, what's the other guy that pays notoriously well? Phil Collins. I'm not talking about Phil Collins money. I don't
Right.
need Beatles money, but I need respectable, fucking 44-year-old dad, grown man money.
Right.
Like shit.
It's not too much to ask for.
So I don't think so. I know exactly what, I have like an annoying, uh, an annoyingly accurate idea of how good I am and what I'm worth. You know, I know what I'm not, and that hurts. It's bitter. It's a bitter pill to swallow. Because when I'm in the presence of like what I consider to be like true greatness, uh, with a guitar player or whatever, I feel that in my gut, dude. It's like, oh shit, I'm not there. That's not me. This guy's got a whole other gear, you know, or this girl, whatever. Go on Instagram, start scrolling through the musicians, dude. You'll see people on there that are just mind bending.
Yeah.
They're 20,
That's
you know?
very dangerous to do. I do that with art, and I'm just, those are the days usually like I just need to quit. Like, why am I even bothering? Like, why? And then
Well, yeah.
it's like on top of that, bro. Not to mention, first of all, you could scroll through and you see artists like some kid in the Philippines that's like 13, like blowing the socks off technically of what I can do, and I'm like, why am I even doing this? And then it's like you flip through the scroll, you're scrolling, and you're like, AI, like someone that's not even an artist is like, can you draw me at typing in? Can you draw me a picture? Blah 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 blah. And it poof, 5 seconds later, it's like, it's over,
Yeah.
And it's like it's only a matter of time before
Yeah.
like music's already there to the point where like we both have musician friends that don't even need a drummer, just pull in some beats, move it around. It's like,
Yeah.
besides live performance, like what's safe? Like, is any of that? I don't know if any of that's safe.
I don't know. I kind of got to believe that like the human aspect can't be mimicked. Um, they're going to get close. They already are. I've messed around on those AI art things. There's a couple things I've made on there just by coming up with some cool words, feeding
Crazy.
it like a cool word. Oh, beautiful. Like, but and that one that everybody was loading their photo into as
Yeah.
well, not too long ago, that kind of took over Instagram. I loaded a bunch of picture of my daughter into that thing, dude, and it was like I was getting emotional over some of them.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it was like unbelievable. Like they drew a picture of my daughter as like a teenager, and it was like, whoa. And they got everything right. They got her like little half colored eye right. Everything was there.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, it's bizarre. Um, but like I can't accept, you know, being completely wiped out of my job by AI as my story. It's just not, because there's too much pre-story to that. Like we've been doing this shit for years. That's not how it ends up.
I don't know, man.
It's not the story.
I
It's
don't
not the story, dude. It's not my. I won't even. It doesn't matter. Like for me, it's like it's all about what's coming out of the speakers, dude.
Yeah.
Once again, and that's mine. And there's nobody that can do that except for me.
Yeah.
So what that means, I don't, as far as me paying my bills, I don't know, but I know that the obligation to it does not change.
Right.
No matter,
Yes.
you know what I mean? The obligation to my art does not change with anybody else's skill set or any AI's skill set
Mhm.
or anything like that. And so I think that like, as long as I can stay there and bring the other thing that I've been really honing in on lately is bringing the best version of myself to my life, you know, like just being better. It doesn't matter how good I am in comparison to others in these. I mean, there's multiple things that I work on every single day that I'm passionate about.
Like what?
And weightlifting is one.
Okay.
I do I'm
No more push-up challenge, huh?
No, I still do push-ups all the time. I just cranked out 100 before we got on here.
Okay.
My push-up thing is now I do one set to failure.
Wow.
And then I add a push-up the next day. And so this morning I did like 105 in one set, which is pretty freaking good for a 44-year-old daddy-o, dude.
Amazing.
That weighs 260,
Yeah, that's
you
a lot.
know? Yeah, it's pretty good. Now, is it the best? No. Dude, if I want to get frustrated about it, go on YouTube and type in push-up world record. Some dude did like 14,000 or something in a day. Didn't stop, just started doing it. And then 24 hours later was like, okay, I'm done. You know? Yeah, it's like, so, and so what is the, like, I'm doing way closer to zero than I am to what that guy is.
Right, right.
You know what I mean? Like, so, I mean, you got to be the, the amount of information about other people that we can access online and other people's skills is really humbling and really like maybe even better left alone. You know,
Mm,
it's hard to say, but so like, yeah, the best version of me to my life and to my marriage. That's been another huge one. It's like you owe it to the people in your life to like to be your best, whether or not they're going to even notice so much the work you're putting in. I have like this almost masochistic mindset towards how I treat myself with my morning routine. Now I'm doing all the like I'm addicted to like alternative um like health practices, I guess.
yeah,
Like Wim Hof,
yeah.
I'm all about. I do it every single day. I have an ice tub. Did it this morning. I got just like sitting there for as long as I can, and I get up and I'm like, and then I saw this other study about how it raises your testosterone if you go ice bath and then you warm yourself up with exercise,
Yeah.
you know? Um,
Yeah, I've heard you're supposed
so
to do like exercise, ice first and then exercise. Because if you,
yeah,
I'm into this. I'm into the same shit you're into. We always get in these combos where it's like we compare.
mm,
Who are you listening to? Like, and it's like I've heard a lot of people say
yeah,
if you don't want to do ice after exercise because it lowers the inflammation and you need that for adaptation.
yeah, that makes sense, right? I mean, shit, I'm not a scientist or anything, but like, I'm like all about where the proof is in the pudding for me,
Hmm.
you know? And I've been addicted to dieting. I say addicted because like I just realized this about myself. You know, like the last 5 years of my life have been like really focused on not being addicted to shit. You know, and here I am like these other things kind of like they got worse because I don't drink,
Right.
and like I'm addicted to diets. I'm addicted to diets that could potentially be controversial, and some people are not going to like them because there's like this element of individuality that comes with them. And I've always been on these things. 20s and 30s it was vegan, raw vegan, you know. And then now like for 2 years all I've been eating is steak.
Yeah.
And it's like I it's addict I'm addicted to dieting. It's so fucking weird, dude. And then I'll have like these full fallouts, like these food benders that come along with them because I'm so militant, and I'm just be like, I can't do it anymore. And then it's like a 6 weeks straight of just eating shit, just bumming out, laying on the couch, getting all fucking depressed. I have like this like cyclical um depression schedule that's
Mhm.
like clockwork. And I've really learned it about myself. It's funny, like, sorry, I feel like I'm going out off on a rant here,
No, I love this
but
stuff, man. I'm the same exact
okay,
way.
cool. So
Exact same way.
yeah, so I'm pretty sure, and I'm not going to go to a doctor before I even start this and get diagnosed with it because like I got to get up and do my shit regardless, you know. But I'm pretty sure I got bipolar 2, which is like a catch-all for, you know, varying degrees of um, seasonal affective disorder. Is that what it is? Like depression, sort of. But mine, like I can like map it, dude. You know, and like around the time I discovered it and started to read about bipolar 2, and then like literally like you know they have like those laundry lists uh of symptoms, and they almost at first seem like oh they're just trying to make everybody like I thought when I first read it oh they're just trying to make everybody feel like they got bipolar 2 so they go get on drugs.
Mm.
But no, it turns out not everybody has 100% of the symptoms. like, but I did. And so that was like a lot of the reason why, well, that and obviously having my kid was the reason for quitting drinking. So basically what happens is there's three different like phases of this thing. And the first one's super fun. And they call it hypomanic, I
Yeah.
think is what it is. I'm gonna mess up the
Fun one for
yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
I'm like on cloud nine, bro.
invincible, like thoughts, like grandiose thoughts.
Oh,
You can fucking tackle anything. You're
bro.
invincible.
Oh
Yeah.
man, if I could just stay there, holy shit. But it's short lived and you burn out your brain circuitry because everything's just,
Uh-huh.
you know? And then after that becomes like the irritable manic phase where you're still like manic, but everything's kind of pissing you off. And this is the time when like I'm glad I caught it because I would like start popping off at Rhonda for no reason, who she didn't deserve it, and then or whatever else, or I would just and then the self talk starts to get real negative, and the story kind of turns on you, like, oh, it's not your fault, it's the world's fault, basically, just distilling it down. It's the world's fault, it's not you, you're doing it right, whatever, that kind of shit. And then with me, it's followed up by like crippling, like I can't do anything with my life depression. And that's the part that lasts the longest.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it usually is like 2 weeks, and a month,
Mm-hmm.
2 weeks, 2 weeks, a month. Sometimes it's 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 6 weeks. And those are the ones that just like practically take me out. And if me falling off my diet lines up with my depression 6 week thing, look out, daddy's blowing up, dude. You know what I mean? So, so I have to really fucking watch it. Like you and I both went down the Eckhart Tolle rabbit hole, I think around the same time in our lives, like when Power Now came out way back in the day. And that's when like the way he described living in the moment in that book, that I got it. I felt like I got it in like a new way and I could like put it into my life. And so forever grateful to that guy for that. But living in the moment's become like a much more complex thing for me now, because it's not just like living. I always like had like this kind of like gentle and like profoundly comfortable idea of it, where like you're just soaking, it's like everything's nice and serene and you're living in your moment, and you're acknowledging the beauty and all these positive things. And that's totally true. But there's another side of it for me that I have to sharpen all the time, and like I'm trying to get it in more, and that's that I also have to stand guard there.
Mm-hmm.
I have to stand guard over the story that I'm telling myself about my life, because that could easily twist into something that, whether it's true or not, is going to throw me off the horse. So I have to like vet everything that I tell myself about my life, because I've been in situations so many times before where I was depressed, and it's because I had the wrong idea about things. And if I'm going to get depressed anyway, then at least I can get stronger against what like, as far as like is managing the story, get stronger managing the story, so I can not be as down in the dumps when it happens. And when I first got sober, anyways, I just always had this idea, like, when I clean up and I get healthy, then those thoughts are going to leave me alone. I always had that idea, but
Yeah.
really, like, that's not how it works with me at all. It's like they actually get worse, dude, and they get smart, and they got my number. They know, like, my negative thought pattern. They know what I'm gonna think about. Like, they know, like, it's almost like it happens in like levels of intensity with my resistance. So like the first one will be something I can shrug off easy, and then the second one will be something that's like, oh, that kind of sucks, but I'm not, and then the third one will be something that I cannot help but think about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this is positive and negative both. Positive and negative both. Like, as far as the emotion I feel from it, like if it's like a piece of gear that I want, like that I really want, that'll be a positive emotion. But then it's like, it's still like kind of not necessarily healthy, because it's all about, I don't need any more gear. Like, if there's somebody that doesn't need any more music gear, it's me, but I'm buying it still all the fucking time.
Right.
once a month I got to do it, or something. But anyways, like I kind of went off on a tangent there. But that mindset, like, um, it's not, so this bipolar thing, it's not about getting it to go away. It's about getting stronger and staying stronger,
Mm-hmm.
because it's going to get stronger with you. And then, well, if you fall off, if you get weak, it's still this strong. So I know now that what I'm doing, my routine, my health routine, and the things that I'm doing for my sanity, they're for survival.
Right.
Like I go out and I sit in that cold water, not because of inflammation or anything like that. Those are side good things. It's because it's gonna you get like a 200% norepinephrine dopamine. I don't know the science on it, but they found that like for 2 hours after that,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to be in a good mood.
Yeah.
And so I think to myself, okay, that's maybe 15% of my waking day. I don't have to like fight for. I can go sit in some ice water for 5 minutes for that. You know what I mean? Um, Same thing with my weightlifting. It's like I have to go out there and do that. So the rest of my day, it kind of like, no matter how uncomfortable things might get, it's like I already did that to myself. I mentioned this in our first podcast, but that's still my trip. Like I wake up and I get myself in line. You know what I mean? Um, and it's not because life is hard. It's because my negative thought, uh, whatever that engine is a monster. You know, and it's only getting stronger. So if I don't get stronger, then it's gonna fucking bury me. So that's what's up with that.
Think what you're
You
talking
know?
about. I think most artists and creative people and musicians can relate to that. I feel like maybe that's that like hard wiring that we have, that software that's running in our brain is what maybe made us take this very illogical path to pursue the things that we love to do. Like just the fact that when we were younger, we thought it was smart to pursue this as a career. I'm like, what the fuck was wrong with me? Like why?
Yeah,
There's so many
it's
more.
the smartest thing we ever did, though.
Yeah,
It
but
was smart, bro.
yeah, it's smart, but it's also like it shows that like those like grandiose thoughts that we just believe that we're invincible, that we can make it work, like we can defeat all the
Yeah,
odds. It's not bad or good necessarily. It's just in itself, it's just like it's kind of as a symptom of showing like you have that software running too because you think you can make this work, just like I think I can make it work. And then it's like, whoa.
yeah,
But I was the same way growing up. I had like such bad, like as a little kid, I had such bad like OCD and like depression and bipolar, and definitely bipolar, where it's like up, 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 down, down, down. Like, and I grew up with a mom that's
yeah,
bipolar in my house, so I sort of like saw it modeled before me. Like, here's how life is: you up, 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 down, 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 screaming, drama,
yeah,
you know, crazy aggression, and
yeah,
then
man.
super love and hugs and cuddles, and next thing you know, you're screaming. It's like just craziness back and forth all over the place. But it's like I learned, I think, when I first got like of college age and I started studying psychology, I was like, I first, for the first time ever, realized like, oh, this anxiety thing, you're not actually supposed to feel like that. Like, not everyone feels like your heart
Yeah,
racing and you're stressed and you have anxiety. Like, that's not a normal thing. I thought that's just what everyone felt like.
yeah,
I used to go to the beach or a park and I'm like, all right, I'm relaxed, but I'm like, I wasn't really relaxed. I was always like, ugh. And I
yeah,
think like that both you and I discovered on our own, like you can take that software, that app in your brain and apply it to anything you want. So it's like I do the same thing you do. Like I have a very strict morning routine that's gotten just really fucking crazy and complex. Like the more I learn on podcasts, I'm like, oh, I'll add that thing to my routine. I'll add that thing to my protocol.
hmm
Like I got like a red light thing
yeah,
over here. I've got like a mood light over here. I've got like my meditation, my lifting, my running, my sunshine in the morning, like my circadian rhythms, like my
yeah,
diet, like all that stuff. And
dude. Yeah,
got
100%.
so
Yep.
freaking complex, but it's like, for me, it works because like you and I, like you were like hearing you is like hearing my own brain. Like you turn a switch on, you're like, all right, that obsession, let it go fucking crazy with all these things. Like you give it a fenced in yard to play.
Yeah.
Here you go, you crazy fucking part of my brain. Go do whatever you want in this parameter. Like when, in these sections of my life, you can be as obsessive and crazy as you want because it serves me,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I just I just but same. I'm obsessed with becoming better.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter like where I am. Well, it's only recently ceased to matter where I'm at actually. And that's a weight off. That's a weight off of me because I don't it's just like as long as I'm doing my best, then I'm winning, you know? Um but that's, doing your best though that's a huge undertaking. Like if you're really gonna do it, that means no slipping up, you know?
It gets
And
dangerous.
yeah, well, it also makes me, I'll get like militant level grumpy.
Yeah.
And then I also like start expecting things out of the people that are closest to me that they're like, they're not going to do them. And it's just because they're not there. They don't want to do those things. They're
Mm-hmm.
not like me. My wife doesn't want to go sit in a fucking ice bath.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with her for not wanting to do that. But then I find myself in the corner like, oh, like huffing and puffing about, oh, she doesn't want to like, make herself better, huh? It's like, dude, that's so lame of me.
Dude,
Like,
I
give me a break, dude.
my medicine cabinet has four shelves of like various supplements.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I'll like discover a new one. I'm like, Chelsea, you should really take this such and such, this resveratrol or this NMN or this other thing that I'm taking. Like, and she's just like, I'm good, like just leave me alone with your shit, like.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's our trip, man. Yeah, I'm not going to try to drag my wife into it anymore. She
Right.
doesn't want to do it,
It's
and
like
for good
you
reason.
should partake in my lunacy, but it's all healthy, good stuff. And I know we're coming at it from a place of like we want our families to benefit from information that we have, but
Hmm.
you can't force it on people.
Yeah. Well, it's also nice to be validated on your knowledge of things too from the people that are closest to you.
Yeah.
You know,
And
because really, like what it is it's like a lot. There's a lot of research that's gone into it, and a lot of passion that's gone into the discovery of it.
right.
And so getting met by somebody that's close with you by like, oh, you're nuts as a response, it's like that doesn't really line up.
Yeah.
But maybe they're not wrong, right? So,
Yeah.
um, yeah.
You were getting back to music for a second. Something you said before that's kind of been
Okay.
ringing around my brain that I want to ask you is we were talking about like going on social media, how it kind of fucks us up, and the comparison thing is just terrible. Like the whole imposter syndrome is very
Mm.
real. But you did mention in that part of our conversation, you were saying about how like when you are around greatness, when you are around people that are like whatever next level, are
Mm.
what situations or what people pop in your head when you think of like that time I was around someone or some band or whatever that,
Uh,
whoa.
like one of the most humbling experiences as a musician I've ever had would be the gigs that I did with Josh Smith. Josh is an LA guitar player, and
Mm-hmm.
he plays like he fucking invented it, dude. It's like he invented the guitar. That's the feeling I get when I watch him play. It's just like, oh, this is the first guy that ever, you know what I mean? Like he's taken like, and it's a very complex thing. Like he's a guitar player, So you have to like, I think in order to really appreciate him, you gotta like understand what's going on the guitar, at
Mm-hmm.
least a little bit, you know. It's kind of like a lot of those really, really flashy players are. Like when you go to like a Steve Vai concert, it's like nothing but guitar players. Joe Bonamassa, same thing. And Josh is very much in that league of player. He just happens to be the only guy that I've been on stage with that's in that league of player, like for real.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, I've been on stage with some absolute killers, but they're more like soul. Uh, you know, I don't even want to say that. I don't want to say that there's soul lacking anywhere in Josh's playing. It's just he's got that really fast gear too, and that really technical gear, and then he also has the feeling. He's got like really good feeling. So it's kind of like it's like it's trippy. Like you're trying to find a hole in the dude's game, and there's just not one. you know. So it's like those are, and usually like when the ego side of me, when I see a player that's really good, I go looking for holes,
Yeah.
you know, just to like make myself feel better. And when there's not one, it's like, oh shit, I better go practice, you know. And that's a form of inspiration, you know. It's not like the best feeling form of inspiration. Like it's like I feel like it's like not just feeling like I need to go practice. I feel like I need to go catch up,
Mm.
you know. Um, but anyway, yeah, like he that dude's really killer. Who else? That's like probably the most recent one. We did a live record not so long ago, and Donovan had a bunch of guitar slingers come out and like play on different songs, and then he put it out. And when Josh was up there, it was just like, but all those guys, everybody that got up there, Mason Stoops, Eric Krasno, Dwayne Betts, all slamming players in their own right, you know, for sure. But and then you know, I usually see it. I usually see something, at least one thing that's wildly humbling a day while I'm scrolling.
Mm.
There's so many players out there, man. Like I saw this the other day. I saw this. It was like this younger guy, looked kind of like a goth, kind of like a goth vibe with like lots of neck tattoos, like a lot of really dark tattoos, really kind of a skinny and kind of pale dude, like black hair, and he was playing like a Steve Vai looking kind of like Ibanez guitar,
Mm-hmm.
and he was playing some mind blowing stuff. There's this other cat on Instagram named Matei Sato, um, that like every time when I see him pop up in my feed, most of the time I'll skip it because I know it's just gonna like bum me out.
Yeah. I
You know, it's like,
I
oh,
get
can't see that. Like, you
it.
know,
I do that with some art. Like I'll like zoom in. I'm like, come on. There's like you're saying about finding holes. I totally relate to that. Like you'll see a piece and I'm like, come on. There's got to be some kind of proof that a human did this. And I try to zoom in and try to find a brushstroke or something that messed up. I'm like, come on, really, fucker. I find
yeah,
I think it's probably the same with. I know it's the same with music, but like with art, it's like a lot of times I'll see people getting like 4 gazillion views, and it's like something that's like photorealistic, and it's like there's a technical ability there when someone does something super photorealistic, but it's like what a non-visual artist doesn't really realize. It's like the work, like in my brain, the work of it is like creating something that's like new and unique that doesn't exist. It's much different than being like a human photo printer. Like if you're able to like see a photo or something and
mm-hmm.
you're copying and you're just doing it like on a grid or whatever, and it's like you're just copying pixel by pixel. Like I'm not definitely not everyone can do that. There's definitely a skill to be able to paint very precisely. But when it's like you're just copying
Yes,
there or you're just doing technical stuff, it's very, very impressive to everyone, but like especially to people that don't paint. But like for me, I'm way more impressed with something that's much simpler that is like really unique or like speaks or has some kind of life to it or something that's just like
yeah,
so new. And even though that piece might not have any kind of like technical ability, I'm like wondering how you relate to that, like what I just said, and also like the people you mentioned, like Josh and other people, like do they have not only the technical ability? Is it mostly the technical
that's
ability,
right.
or is it also like
No, it's like
it's
a
fun?
heavy mix of both.
It's
It's a
both.
mix of both.
Okay.
That's what it is. They got both. That's what's mostly mind blowing about it, because usually guys have one or the other.
Hmm.
You know, it's like, have you seen this? Have you seen? Are you hip to Joel Rea?
Yes, I feel like I am. I feel like I am. I think I've seen.
Yeah,
No,
so
I think I have.
he's like he's like a photorealistic painter that paints like surreal scapes,
Hmm.
and so that guy kind of comes to
Yeah,
mind as somebody
I'm
that's
looking. I'm
got
looking it up. I've
the
definitely
tech.
seen his stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, he's bizarre. And there's this other guy that I really got into on Instagram too, that his handle is Jeremy is painting.
Okay. Yeah, I've definitely seen.
And he does like a lot of what,
I'm looking at Joel's stuff now. It's like super, super technical. It's amazing, but it's also like so like the part of me that like like you said, the part of me that is looking for the holes. Technically, there's no
Yeah,
guy is crazy technical. Then I also see it's like he's just taking two photos and kind of sticking them together. So like the
there's a
part
little bit of that.
the part of me that wants to like my ego that wants to like knock it, which there's nothing to knock. It's beautiful, but like it's also
Yeah.
like it's not really creating necessarily something new. It's putting things in a surreal light. Like it's an amazing
Yes.
painting, but it's like just you took this painting of a weird creature that doesn't belong in the street and you put it together. But the painting is
Right.
beautiful. It's gorgeous.
Yeah. There's another guy named Jeremy is painting. He does a lot of like astronaut themed kind of stuff.
Seen his
And
stuff.
like
Yeah, I've
he'll
seen that.
he'll like yeah, he'll do like a spaceship crashed into a building, and but anyways, like those are just the first two guys that came to my mind that might kind of describe a little bit of like as far as the how it might manifest in the art world, the type of musicianship that freaks me out, you
Mhm.
know.
Yeah.
Um, it's like one thing that a guitar player that I used to take lessons from back in the day told me is he said like, hey, so the right hand that's your gas pedal, and the left hand that's your steering wheel. He's like, don't step on the gas unless you got your hand on the wheel,
Okay.
you know. And
Like that.
so I was like, huh, and that kind of sticks to me as like a soul and technical,
Okay.
you know. A lot of the guys that are mostly soul and feel players, they have like more shit going on with their right hand than they do with their left.
Mm.
And and a lot of the heavy technical players, they got it going on with both places, but it's mostly just like really mathematic sounding, and it's like it sounds like they just got like they dove too far into it and polished it up just a little bit too much, and now it sounds like, well, a computer played it or something. A lot of these, and I got nothing but respect for the ability. It's like I can't do it. I wouldn't even want to. Like a nightmare of mine would be to go to a gig like that where I was expected to play something resembling it. It's like if I went to a gig on drums for like a straight ahead jazz band, I'd just butcher it. The
Yeah.
whole gig would be ruined.
Mm-hmm.
You know. But I love jazz drumming. I listen to it all the time. Those guys blow me away. Um, I don't know, man. It's
Pause there for a
there's
second.
guys out there that's
I'm going to ask you to pause there for
okay.
a second, just because something you said reminded me of something I wanted to ask you, and I don't want to forget. You were saying about
Okay, cool. Yeah.
you were just saying about how like you love listening to jazz, but you can't or don't want to do it, right? I wanted to ask. I don't know how this is going to come out as a question, but it's more of a thought in my head that popped in. When I go to like a museum or like art gallery, a lot of times I'll catch myself spending the most amount of time and energy looking at paintings that look nothing like anything that I can or want to do. And it's very weird.
Right.
Like you would think like
For
one
sure.
person would think like, let's go on a museum trip with Jay and he'll be looking at all ocean waves and blah blah blah. And like, no, I'm actually like spending a lot of time in like the Dutch masters from the 1500s, or like Renaissance
Mm.
painters, or like Picasso, or like stuff that looks zero like my work. And it's almost like, like the muse that I have can't or doesn't want to do that, but it's like me as a human, I'm like, can't I just get a different piece of software installed, because I really would like to try to do that, but it's like that's just not what comes through me, and it's not what I have interest
Yeah.
in learning. But if I had to put something on my wall, like if I had fuck you money, I would buy like an original Van Gogh, or I'd buy like some kind of crazy detailed painting from the 1700s that looks like a incredible, looks nothing like my work. What's like the equivalent of that for you? Is it jazz or is it something else?
Yeah. Well, definitely. Like I love jazz.
Me too,
I'm
man.
really picky about. I'm really picky about the jazz that I like, but when I do like it, I definitely love it. Like I really love John Coltrane. I don't play sax, but me saying that as a musician is like I don't know one musician that doesn't like Coltrane. You
Yeah.
know, but I also have like a little bit of an obsession with B3 players, Hammond B3 players, the guys that kick the bass.
Right.
Like Joey DeFrancesco, he just died, but he was somebody that I would like watch regularly because I was just so blown away by his musicality, and he would just be playing. The thing that was most freaky about him is he would just be playing this way out there stuff. And I think it was pretty, at least for a time there, he was pretty well known as the finest B3 player on the planet. You
Mm.
know, like everybody kind of had no problem giving it up to him. You know, there's this other cat named Corey Henry now that played. He played. He has a band called Corey Henry and the Funk Apostles. He's a keyboard player, but he also plays. He can play B like that, and I'm kind of like obsessed with following him too. I don't play keys, but he's so. I mean, it's just like they're so amazing. You know.
Mm.
Um, yeah, like yeah, definitely like, and I also don't play much upright. I can fart around on it. Like I actually get gigs in the studio doing it, but it's always for like wonky country or like wonky old blues, you know. But I love guys that can really get around on the upright, because I think I have such a respect for it, because I know how hard it is. It's hard, you know, and I can't really do it, you know,
Yeah.
and I can't really also bring myself to commit to a practice routine that would be, you know, effective enough to bring me into that world.
Mm.
I know what it would take. I'd have to like lock myself away somewhere for 6, 8 months just so I can get to where I could start to gig on it, you know? Um, so yeah, I mean, yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I'm definitely not listening. I'm never listening to anything I'm playing on, you know? My buddy that but you know, not all art form is that way. Like I have a buddy that's like a brew, what do they call it? A brew master for like for a big brewery. He's genius at what he does. He cannot drink beer he didn't make, or he'd rather not. You know,
Yeah. It's
so it's
interesting.
not that way for all creatives, right?
No,
Yeah, he's like, yeah, it's because he's making it for him.
it's
You know,
it's a really interesting topic. I think about it a lot because I love making art. Like I really do love the journey. I love the process. I love when you can get that rare moment of being like in the zone, which doesn't always happen. I wish I was always there, but like when those moments happen, I like love nothing more than like being a vessel for whatever is coming through me. But I'm really not like I don't spend a huge amount of time looking at other people's art. Like it's weird. Like and the same thing with music to some extent different, but like I lately have been like really spending a lot of time like trying to get better at guitar, and I started teaching myself bass like a month ago, which has been really fun.
that's so cool. Yeah, I saw a video you did. That was rad.
It's just enjoyable, you know. And I love
Yeah.
listening to music. But then a friend of mine the other day was like, "Hey, there's this festival going on. It's like, it's like 3 days. You have to like drive or fly there." I'm like, that sounds like fucking torture to me. Like, I don't want to sit at a music festival for 3 days. I don't want to be sweaty. Like, I don't love music. I guess I don't love music that much, or I'm too old. I don't know. But like, I like listening to
I
music.
think it's probably the latter.
Too
You're
old,
just over it.
maybe.
Well, I mean, there was a time in your life where you'd have been like, hell yeah, right? When you're 20,
Kind of,
22.
yeah. Like I did the Lollapalooza thing. I did a bunch of festivals, but it was more like the kind of thing where I think I thought I was supposed to like it, and when I was in it, I'm like, I don't want to be
Ah,
sweaty and dirty and gross. And like, I had fun because I was wasted, and I was trying to like,
yeah,
I was trying to chase tail, and I was wasted, and it was cool. But like,
yeah,
afterwards, I'm like, oh, I'm in my couch. Like, like I think the older you
yeah.
get, you kind of
I
realize like
get it.
what you like.
I've always been stoked to be at festivals like backstage,
Yes, that's a different
and we're
story.
playing.
That's a different story.
Yeah, totally. You're not out there with the herd.
Yeah,
'Cause it gets wild out there, man.
like whenever I've had, Chelsea and I've had the opportunity to be at a festival and you're behind the scenes, that's fucking amazing. Because you could actually just relax. You could have really good
Yeah,
conversations. Like you
yeah.
can really enjoy it. You're not like,
That's actually the extent of my festivals. I've never gone to a festival as a spectator.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I used to really love going to shows, you know, before I started doing that for a living. Um, when I was a younger guy, I would go to shows and have a really good time. But it was never like, well, I went through a pretty crazy punk rock and metal phase when I was a kid, and that would be like go to a show, almost get beat up, just
yeah,
in the pit on purpose, like have a black eye that you got like on purpose,
right.
basically, or whatever. And then and like so, but that like kind of fizzled out pretty quick. Like I don't think I went to one. I don't think I've been to one of those type of shows since. Oh, shit, I don't know. Actually, I went to a Sugar show not too long ago. That's a band I'll pay to see. There's just bands that I'll pay to see. There's not a ton of them.
Yeah,
You know, like Sharon Jones and the Dap came when Sharon was alive. Every time they came through downtown, I was there.
You write that down.
Like I felt like I was literally Sharon Jones and the Dap Kings. Yeah.
Okay.
She passed away. I actually met her. I got to meet her twice, which was so cool. And she was just such a performer. And when you would go to those shows, you felt like you were like, you just really felt like you were witnessing not just greatness, but like, you were like witnessing something that was modern. And then also like, they were like historians at the same time, kind of, like they're paying such perfect homage to the best parts of music from that era,
Right.
from that, like, so that 60s soul era, but then also putting their own respectively putting a twist on it that worked today. And it was just a matter of they just harvested the coolest tones and the coolest aspects of that music. And it was really something to go see. And dude, it was so, I remember I saw them play at what was that place called? Now it's called the Observatory, but it used to be called something different. It's in Orange County. And I went and saw them, and I drug some close friends of mine. And I was just like, just wait, you're going to have a fun time. Yeah, it's going to be fun. And it was like maybe half full, like really comfortable. And everybody was kind of seated. And then they started, and like everyone that was there went down front and started dancing. And not just like dancing, watching the band, like dancing with people. The whole place like turned into like, like I had my girlfriend at the time, and we were like cutting it up. And I don't dance, dude, but it was just like, you couldn't help it. You couldn't help it, dude. It was infectious.
Awesome.
You had to move. And so for me, like, to go see a band that's going to get me out on the dance floor cutting it up, like, I'll pay for that, dude, because that's inhibitions left behind,
And that's like
those are moments that like,
that's like one step closer to getting you dancing at DJs in Belmar.
Well,
Give Matt some lights.
Sharon Jones, if they got to hit a band like that, maybe. But I know they don't. They got some DJ bumping a bunch of shit that's gonna freak me out, make me have anxiety. You know what I mean?
Talked about you talked about something that actually reminded me of you. I'm going to pay you a compliment here. You were saying about how they paid like a perfect homage to a combination of kind of nostalgia with like modern, and like listening to your solo stuff. That's kind of what I feel from you. Like even
right on.
Like I've known you for a long time, and like from the very beginning of me hearing you play, watching you play, seeing you play, before I met you, after I met you, like there's like you haven't, like you could kind of tell through your playing. You're sort of like like when you're really feeling it, not when you're just doing a normal gig, but when you're like really in it, you could like, I could see, it feels like from a audience perspective or from backstage perspective, like you're channeling something. And like even like your music, when you hear it, like the way you arrange your songs and like the tones you choose, your lyrics, it feels like such an homage to like blues, to certain legends of blues and folk, that you could tell that you're paying homage, but it sounds nothing like other bands. And I was listening
right on.
Like before we started chatting, I was listening to like some of your songs again, because it's been a little bit since I've just had a chance to really dive into it. And like the one song that kind of stuck out that I wanted to ask you about was Teeth. I'm like that song, that song Teeth, like it almost sounds like you're writing it like to yourself in a way. Like you could almost imagine.
Oh,
like,
100, yeah.
Is it like about like your sobriety?
For sure.
Because listening to it on a superficial level, it could be about like a bad breakup. It could be about like a bad side of you in relation to another person. But I'm getting the vibe of like what lies beneath. Like it's about like the struggles that you're having more so internally, as opposed to like how you're internally interpreting something else.
It's like, it's one of those things, like it's definitely like my idea of it was more of an internal thing, like being lied to by myself, kind of. But also it's like during that time too, like I was putting up with some things in certain areas of my life where I just kind of felt like people weren't taking me seriously,
Yeah.
And like, if there's one thing that I just absolutely can't stand, and and it's my number one thing that I make sure that I don't do, and that's like the saying goes, have your cake and eat it too.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's unacceptable behavior, in my opinion, in any type of circumstance. And so I guess I just felt like there was some stuff like that coming at me from certain areas in my life at that time. And then I just kind of felt like I needed to like grow a pair. Like, dude, fuck, toughen up.
Mm,
Like get some teeth on you to where like, you're smiling, but people can see like this guy's not to be trifled with.
yeah.
Like we're not even going to try to. I mean, that's like kind of the ideal world, right? Like to be like a formidable enough presence to where like people just like they're going to treat you fairly because they don't want to go there with you. Like, um, and then also like, what's the first line in that? Grow some teeth. You think I don't know a lie when it's told to me? It's like,
Hmm.
dude, it. I trip out when people are dishonest because it's almost like you're not realizing that we all have like a set of senses that aren't necessarily that just they detect that stuff. We're all close enough to each other to know that to know like at least have a pretty good idea when you're getting bullshitted. So why even do it? Like I don't do it. I don't lie. Like that's something I had to eradicate from my life with like everything that I had because there was a time when I would, especially to get myself out of a pickle
Hmm.
or to get myself into a job or whatever it would be. I lied to get the Donovan gig back in the day. I told him I could sing backups,
You didn't think you could?
and I'd never sung before. I don't know. I was like, well, I'm going to because I want this gig.
Yeah.
And I showed up and just started singing them, and they were kind of whack at first. But then I got hold of it, and then boom, you
You,
know,
you taught yourself how to sing? Like you weren't singing before that. I find that
it
hard.
was like, dude, I taught myself how to sing and play harp on Donovan's stage. I've never even practiced harmonica ever in my life.
But your dad's a
I learned
freaking
all that
amazing
shit on
player.
stage.
Your dad didn't?
Well, okay, so yeah, I had a very good reference for what
Okay.
it should sound like, but
But your dad didn't
but
teach
like
you. I always assumed he did.
this is what no this is what happened. Well, I learned he taught me. He never sat down and gave me a harp lesson, but yes, he taught me how to do it.
Okay.
In hindsight, for sure. Like I definitely was in the. I definitely am always going to the what would Mo Grundy do, uh, book
Yeah.
for things. But anyway, so I went and bought. I think it was Bored on Tour. I think we were in Colorado. And this was early on because I remember Rusty was there, who was Donovan's first keyboard player, and we were in a music store, and I bought a harp. And I remember my dad told me, if you ever play harp, one time he tried to teach me when I was a kid to just blow single notes.
Hmm.
Learn to blow single notes. That's what you do first. And I couldn't do it. And I got frustrated and put it down, went and grabbed my guitar. I'm a guitar player, whatever. And so I sat there and like within 15 minutes, I was able to blow solo notes. And then I was like, oh, and I think you can bend this one. And you draw it in. And dude, the first time I ever tried to bend a note on a harmonica, I did it. And I was like, oh, so that's where the blues little thing. And I played a little blues like it was like, dude, I didn't even have to try. It just came to me
Hmm.
enough, just a little window. And I
Right.
and then I was like, Donnie, check it out, dude. I got a little freaking riff. And Don was like, you're doing that on stage tonight. So I was like, oh shit, here we go. And then cut to 6 months later, I had a couple of his songs like really wired, probably sooner than that. And now it's like what people expect out of like people call me Donovan's harmonica player. This is Donovan's harmonica player. It's because I play harp on one fucking song. Like,
Yeah.
dude, yeah. Like they'll call me. Like it was so frustrated when I was playing double deck because I'd be playing bass and guitar at the same time, and then I'd still get called this harmonica player. It's like, uh, you see that I'm playing two other instruments at the same time? Like I'm not just a harp player. Anyways, that's just my pride getting in the way. But it's funny what people notice.
It is.
Like what pulls people's attention. Like me playing a double neck guitar didn't pull this person's attention at all. But when I pulled the harp out, then it did. Right? So weird.
Yeah, I
Like an
didn't even
instrument
know you.
I don't even consider myself to be a harp player because I don't try. you
I
know
mean, so how much of that is
so
due to the fact that you already like spoke the language of music? Is it so related that
oh, lots, yeah, a lot,
a
yeah,
lot? Okay.
yeah, a lot,
So
yeah. And I grew up playing in a band with a harmonica player my whole life, and then
yeah.
listening to him around the house, and just I definitely had an advantage for sure.
So
you
I'm
know
going to ask you. I'm going to ask you this as someone who's trying to get better at music because I've been like a hobbyist where it's like I've been playing guitar and on and off for like a long time, like an embarrassing amount of long time,
hmm
but I've never bothered to do the other stuff that I do in the other areas of my life where things matter, like to do the hard stuff have a disciplined practice. It's always been like, I'm going to learn this tablature. I'm going to learn how to play like the first chorus, or whatever. And then so I think it's also has to do with like another birthday, getting older. Like, it's like fucking now or never.
Yeah.
And I'm like wondering if you can like shed some light on the language of music. Like, has there been milestones if you can go back far enough, have there been milestones, or do you have advice for either myself or people listening where maybe like a switch went off in your head, where it went from like theory was something that you were studying to the point where theory was something that you were speaking, like a language, like when you have kids, it's like you teach them words, you teach them sentences, and the next thing you know, they're able to put them together in a new way. Like, how does that look from your perspective to like put together all the elements of theory, which are melting my brain right now? When does that get to the point where it's like you just do it? Like when I'm just painting, I don't.
So you gotta like, yeah, right. When you're to see it, you see it, right? When you're painting, you see it before it's there.
It's easy.
Right?
Like I know the theory, but I'm just painting.
And you see it.
Yeah.
Like when you see what you're going to paint before it's there. Like you've already got it.
Oh, yeah.
So it's the same thing with music. You just have to hear what you're about to play. It's the same thing. And so the best way, what I always tell, I have guitar students, but I think that most of them right now are frustrated with me because I'm like really, really bad at showing up to teach.
Okay.
Because I don't know, it's bad. I shouldn't be a guitar teacher. I enjoy doing it, but it's like, oh boy, here we go again. Anyways, so but the what I always tell them to do is to learn the 5 pentatonic positions.
Right.
Now, the thing that's really cool about those is it's kind of it kind of opens the guitar neck up a lot. Like some guitar players, like blues guitar players and stuff, they live there. That's what they do, right? And the way that the minor and major pentatonic fit together is, well, the relative minor to the major is easier to see in the pentatonic scale because there's fewer notes. And so I tell them to learn all 5 of those down. Like you got it down, just the forms. This is not playing music. This is just, little windows. You're just getting, okay, there's my little window. There's my little window. And that's the exact same positions for every single key, depending on where you start. So it's all good. And then, position 5, if you're up on A and you want to, and you can grab the position 5 pentatonic and then just go down right below it. And you have it right there because it repeats 1 through 5, 1 through 5, 1 through 5, so it's something that's easy to get your head around. So get your head around the pentatonics and then go on to YouTube and type in blues jam in G, right? And then there's going to be 100 videos come up where it's just a band playing with it's just, they're going through the 12-bar blues in G. They stay on the 1, and they go to the 4, and then back to the 1, and they go to the 5, then they go to the 4, then they go to the 1. Every blues song ever.
Yeah.
Then you take your you take your 5 positions of G pentatonic scale that you just learned, and just try to hear things. Try to build little riffs that you think sound cool. Like if you sit there and mess around for an hour or something, and you play those, oh, that sounded cool. Stop right there and go back and figure out what that was, internalize it, and put it in your bag. Now you got a riff in your bag.
Okay.
You got a riff. That's your riff. And then maybe so then after that, you're going to be like, oh, I'm going to listen to BB King today. Like really, like pay attention to blues guitar players because they're the entrance to all this shit, put BB King on and if there's a riff that you'll be able to figure out what key these songs are in because you're playing along with all these videos. You'll be like, oh, this, BB songs in G or A or whatever, E, whatever it's going to be in. And then you might be able, and because those 5 positions, the chances of you finding the riff, because he's basing it off of that, are much more increased. And then you can sit down and teach yourself a BB riff by listening to it.
Right.
And that's one thing that is being lost today on a lot of guitarists that are becoming amazing, is that they didn't just sit down rewinding the tape over and over and using nothing but their ears. They got all these visual aids, you know. So your ears, like, you know, with painting, your eyes are everything, right? And with music, it's your ears. You have to use your ears. And so you develop your ear. Like, and I had a music teacher tell me once that if you can't sing it, you can't play it, or you can't hear it. If you can't sing it, you can't hear it. That's what he said.
Okay.
You can play it because you can just know what the pattern is, but you don't hear it. So getting a really strong ear, you know what I'm saying? The 5 pentatonic positions, you'll be able to get them down in like a week of just like half an hour a day practice. And then you go in. And you know what else you could do is you could be like, okay, so I'm going to play this. It's going to get monotonous, but you'll start to see the benefits. You find your G. A G is a good one to start with because it's kind of like you got some, or maybe A, you got some stuff above, you got some stuff below, some frets below. Here's my blues in A that I'm going to just keep playing. I'm going to hammer this thing into the ground, right? So that's your YouTube video. And then you learn position 1, A minor pentatonic, right? And then so now you got your position 1, A minor pentatonic. I'm just going to stay there and I'm going to solo in just this simple little thing. And then the next day add 2, solo with 1 and 2, and then 3, solo with 1, 2, and 3. You know what I mean? And then give yourself like challenges, like, okay, I'm going to go through it this time, and I'm only going to use position 4. I'm not allowed to use anything but position 4, and I got to make it cool. So then you start developing ways to make things cool in each position, right? And then when you do that with all 5, and then you learn how it relates to major, and you can jump in, like if you're in G major, you can go to E minor pentatonic as well. It's the same thing, but when you're thinking about those riffs being in minor, it just comes across with a different color.
Okay.
And so that you're in G major, but you got G major pentatonic, E minor pentatonic, and you can even play like some G minor pentatonic too, depending on what chord it's in. And then once all this stuff kind of starts to come together, then you can rip a blues solo like good. Like you could show up to a jam and kick some ass, you know. And then your ear just comes along for the ride, and then you can start to venture into things like, I think that's like a really natural progression for guitar players, is like punk rock and shit, and then you learn some blues, you know, and then the guys that really advance, they go into jazz and learn all that crazy chordal theory and all that stuff that I never learned because it's too much for me, dude. You know, like for me, it's like, it's always been, I've always been able to do it, but I've always been trying to be in a band and be famous. So like that takes a lot of time.
It does.
You know, like, so I've always been trying to like promote or get into a situation where I was being seen, and I didn't put enough. If I had it to do all over again, man, you know, I think about that all the time. Like, how would I have done it? Like, as far as me learning, I mean, you're always learning, but you know, like those first few years out of the gates, you're a sponge, dude. That's when, like, you can knock a lot of it out when you're young. You got that upload, that young person upload, you know. Seems like anymore I have to just really work to learn something, you know.
I get it.
A lot harder than I used to.
I actually spent a lot of time I started learning all the I think I know the minor pentatonics, and I think something that recently kind of like I forced myself to make it click in my head, and when it happened, I'm like, oh, got it. Like I learned the shapes because like visually I'm like pretty visual, right? Like I like the shapes all fit together, blah blah blah. But I never bothered to put the time in to learn that it's not really about the shapes, but it's about the steps between the notes and the scales, like this half step. Like I never learned that. Like I never bothered to learn that. So now I'm like really finding interest in like understanding why the shapes work and stuff without getting super technical and crazy where my brain melts. It's fun to be like, oh, now I get it.
Yeah, totally. Well, also it's like you get like playing a blues guitar solo well or starting to is like a nice confidence booster for, like, you know, for continuing it.
Yeah.
you know, because you feel like you got some shit to say.
When I
And
am,
there's nothing worse than being a musician with nothing to say, you know?
I was actually going to ask you something that's perfectly relates to that. So like having something to say, like, so when I'm drawing or painting, I, you know, as you do, you have a million different kinds of processes. People are always like, what's your process? And it's always different, right? But like
Yeah.
inevitably there's always like some tricks up your sleeve or some habitual patterns of like, if you give me a piece of paper and you tell, you know, and I just start drawing, inevitably some, you know, there's maybe a few dozen things, shapes, forms, something relates to something. There's something that had there's something that's common there. And it's like it's fun to kind of jump out of that and start with something completely different. Like what how has your process evolved in the sense of like when you're first starting out, like if you go to pick up your guitar or the bass or whatever, I'm sure there's certain things that you might always start in a certain key or a certain riff or whatever that kind of like acts as an anchor for everything else.
Yeah.
Have you found like different have you forced yourself to start with different anchors or different things that like push you in a direction that you're not even comfortable with? And how has that evolved over the
Totally. So if I don't start the way I've always started when it comes to like writing, let's talk about my solo writings because that's the most 100% creative thing that I do. That's all me from start to finish. Um, Now when that started, I learned this finger picking thing. My first record, Fabric and Fog, almost every guitar riff on the whole thing is that finger picking thing, and then really similar chord changes, and me kind of singing the same way because it's just what I had when I was 25 years old, and learning to. I only been singing for like a year, you know,
Mm.
like it was all very new, and I was just trying to do it. Well, I still do that. Like when I write now, I still do that finger picking pattern, and I still use those chords until I've got something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I change the key, I change the feel to something different, and then I take it elsewhere. So, but I'm still my initial grab out of the ether is with the
Yeah,
same tool
it's like your key.
that it's always been. Yeah, totally. It's like, yeah, it's my little thing.
Okay.
And I still the best songs I write are still the ones that I don't take out of that. I just keep it there, and I'm just like, fuck it. I know I have other songs that sound like this, but those are always the best for me, you know.
Right.
Um, and when I don't do that, which I do all the time, I'm constantly trying to do that to try to find other ways. You know, like I have this one, like I bought this Unison chord pack. There's this company called Unison, and they make this chord pack, and it's really cool. You can go on Pro Tools, and you could just dump these. Like all the chords are for like a bar, you know, and then so whatever your session is, like the BPM on your session, it'll just fill bars with these chords. And
Mm.
like they'll be, so you can like open B flat and it'll be like B flat major, B
Okay.
flat minor, and borrowed chords, right? So I open all those and I'll put together some crazy chord progression that I never would have played,
Okay.
you know? And then it's to a click and I'm like, okay. And then I kind of sit with it for a little while and kind of hear how the colors are moving. And already right out of the gate, we're in uncharted territory for me each time because
Yeah.
it's not my normal thing. And then I'll go, okay, so I think I'm kind of hearing this beat. So I'll go over sit at the drum set, and then I'll come up with a cool bass line. And at this point, I kind of start hearing a melody. And so I'll kind of lay the melody down. And if I hear some lyrics, I'll hang that down. And then every time I do it that way and it's done, it's not me. It's cool, but it's just not me.
Mm.
You know, I've yet to find another way of doing it that I've put out even, you know, like it just
Let me
doesn't.
ask you this, bro, because this is something I've been thinking about doing myself. Because, like we were saying before, like when I'm creating visually, I feel like some days, like it's a completely different artist coming through me. Like you were saying, you experiment quite a bit, right? And
Yeah, all the time.
some days it's like I don't know who that guy was, but it you know totally different. I was like thinking, what if I'm just talking out loud here. This is going nowhere, but like, what if I like had this one artist that's in my brain create something, and I'm like, it's not really working. But then what if I took that and kind of handed it off to the other artist, like speaking of myself as multi-personality, what if I handed it off to
Yeah,
the
right. Got you.
side of me? Like, so I'm like wondering, is there an equivalent for you, or if you create something and you're like, it's not really complete, it's not really me, it's as it is. Have you ever thought about, or have you ever done like taking that musical piece and then say, okay, let me give it to the other Matt Grundy that knows this other thing, and almost like you're doing a virtual collab in your own brain where it's you take two different styles and make it like you would at the studio almost.
Yeah. Well, yeah, a little bit. Well, a little bit of that happens just from all the instruments that I play, because I
Mm,
have like a different way of thinking about music on each thing.
okay.
But one thing I've been thinking about doing lately is taking a lot of these ideas that I make that are like kind of, they would just confuse people if I put them out.
Right.
Some of them sound like hip hop. Some of them sound, like I'm a huge hip hop fan and I always have been. But when I don't write in my traditional like folksy way, like I make hip hop music and it's like, well, it's hip hop influence.
Yeah, yeah.
And like I feel like that would just really confuse people if I could just came out with that and be like, oh, is this like since he's having a midlife crisis or some
Does that
shit?
matter though?
Like
Like, who cares? Does that
no,
matter?
it doesn't. But what? No, it doesn't matter. Well, I mean, I guess it matters enough to where I think about it. And that doesn't, and that's not at all, that doesn't go along with what I kind of started the conversation today out with when I was talking about like I'm the audience, right?
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
at the same time, it's like, yeah, but at the same time, it's like I don't have to call it. This is what I think about lately. I don't have to call that Matt Grundy.
Right.
I could I could have a whole other thing
Yeah.
like this. I'll make a name for it, and they know it's me. But like this is so they know what to, at least people know what to expect.
Yeah,
It's not
dude.
like I have like a, it's not like I have a ton of fans of my solo record, but I do have like several people that have been like, especially my first record. I have people like write me letters saying that they listen to it every day for like 15 years or whatever, how long it's been out. I'm like, what?
That's
How do you
awesome.
do that? Yeah, no, it's totally awesome. But I'm just like,
Dude.
whoa, and then like, yeah, it's super cool. It's not like lots of people, but they're definitely out there.
Yeah.
I think there's like maybe 100 of them. And they're all, I always have at least 100 uh, monthly listeners on Spotify, and I just don't know who they are. And so every once in a while they'll surface and send me a little note. It's like, oh, it's pretty cool. Like people are listening. Feels good. But just to like, I guess, pay respect to the fans and what they expect, the fans I do have and what they might expect out of me. Maybe I should call it something different, right? Or and maybe I will do something like that. One time I had this wild idea where I was going to like make up a band, like fabricate them. And like really, I would just grab like my homies and like dress them up and like say that they're the band, but give them all like fake names, give them some crazy story about how they like live out in some commune in the desert and how they don't record, but like they let me record them. And I had like this whole like make like a fake documentary thing, but really it's just me playing everything and make like this. I had like a project in mind for that for a while, but then I was just like, that seems like a lot of work for, I don't know. It's crazy, man. The possibilities are endless.
I think
You
about
know,
that a lot too,
be
because like
careful with that.
like when I go, especially when I go to a museum, I realize how eclectic my visual taste is. And there's things I already put out that are like very don't fit together. But like if I really like let it all loose, there'd be stuff you'd be like, what is going on in your brain, bro? And I've thought so many
Right,
times, like
right.
I've talked to so many of my artist friends about this when we're just bullshitting. Like everyone I talk to seems to have the idea of like, I wish I could just make like a fake social media and a fake name and just put out stuff that's genuinely me that has nothing to do with everything else. And the only thing I think that stops all of us is it's so much fucking work to like, oh, I'm going to add another social
Yeah,
media to manage. I'm going to add more websites, more newsletters, more blah, blah, blah.
you're
Like,
gonna have a whole other career. There's a whole
yeah,
other career you're trying to get off the ground. Like that's a lot.
that's
You
a
know,
lot.
my my buddy, he was in that band. You remember that band, the Eels?
No,
Okay. Anyways, they were like,
I'll look him.
um,
I'll look him up.
they were doing a lot like in the '90s,
Okay.
early 2000s, and I think that they're still play. I don't think my buddy's in it anymore, but he had this he made like this DJ record,
Hmm.
and uh and he called it DJ Honky, and they made like a cartoon video for it and all this shit.
Okay.
And then when the Eels went out, they had DJ Honky open, but really they just played the record that my buddy had made and just paid some dude to stand there and act like he was DJing.
That's great.
Yeah, super cool.
Man, how is your
So there's
how has your process like shifted? Like we talked in the last podcast about like, you being sober and like your process shifting, but like hearing you talk about how disciplined your regimen is, like mentally, physically, everything. And like, it is hard. I want to know how you feel. For me, it is hard to try to create from like a very clear-headed, sober place. It doesn't always mean the lack of substances, although I am including that, but it also means like just having calm in your brain. Like being a dad, it's very hard to find just peace. Like I miss like creatively, I miss having like just like hours free where you could just sit there and just dwell. And like, so I'm wondering,
Yes.
like, creativity is something that I haven't really found a great way to put my disciplined, obsessive brain to. Like it has to, I feel like, you know, occasionally it helps to like hit a joint or like meditate or like do something, go for a walk, like to get yourself in a different state, because like you can't be like, all right, paint right now. I need you to create something amazing. Like,
Yeah. Well, that's difficult too, right? Because you got to make it happen in a window. You got the kids are coming home from school, right?
yeah, yeah,
So you got to get yourself ready. You got to like it was so much easier because as you know, like inspiration and stuff like that, when it hits, it's like you gotta like you're like a goalie.
yeah.
Like it's like if you're like if real songwriters, they before up until before the phone, they always had a little notepad in their pocket because you don't know when that lyric's coming, and you better
Mhm.
be ready to write it down.
Right.
But if you're changing a diaper, or if you're with older kids, when you're going to soccer practice or whatever, well then those ideas, they don't get written down.
Hmm.
And then so you have to rely on them happening when they can happen, and that doesn't mean that they are. So I've mostly just like, I'm really happy when I get things that I like when I go in and I'm and the work of the day I'm proud of, but it doesn't happen a lot anymore. It's like really few and far between. It's
Mm.
mostly just me kind of like fumbling around and trying to push the pen ahead in some way or another, but
Right.
I'm so preoccupied with being a family man that
Mhm.
it makes it's yeah, it's really hard. It makes me just, well, I don't want to ever dwell on the past, but it makes me really frustrated with 20-year-old me that wasted so much time,
Yes.
because like it could have been hitting a lot more then. And now that now that I have this work ethic, it's like there's so much more work to be done. And yeah, it's just, I'm just happy for the wins that I get, I guess.
Yeah.
And then I try not to beat myself up for if a week goes by and I've spent 40 hours in the studio with nothing to show for it, because that totally happens.
Oh yeah.
you know
Yeah.
like the crumpled up piece of paper on the floor is 99% of the time with me.
Yes.
you know
Same.
and that's got to just be okay. It's got to be okay, because it's just the way it's going to be. Like, I mean, what am I going to do about it? Tell Rhonda to move out, go move with your parents because I need to be you know single. Like,
Uh,
yeah. No,
those
no, no,
uh,
no. That's
those
not how this works, man.
those are the moments that I feel like I'm hardest on myself, when it's like I spend a full day working really hard to try to make something happen and nothing sticks. And then it's like the end of the day, like Chelsea or the kids or someone will be like, "How was your day today?" I'm like, I don't know. I just wasted the whole day. I could have been doing something else, like it's hard to not feel like I'm a piece of shit, like for not providing for my family, like by working really, really hard and nothing actually clicked that day. I have nothing to show for it. It's
Yeah.
those are
Well,
tough.
that's well, okay. So that's actually a state of mind that's easily dealt with just by like meditating practice of like self-forgiveness and being okay. Right. As you know, I'm sure you practice all that kind of stuff as
Yeah.
well. But the part that's not easy to deal with is just the energy going, that you put towards this thing creatively, and then dealing with the fact that you're not batting 1,000
Yeah.
like at all. I mean, I guess I just said the same thing two different ways, but it's like it becomes the stress of, when's the next one coming? Is it coming? Am I dried up? Is that all I got?
Right.
Because that happens in music, especially.
Oh yeah.
You don't see it happen in art really, but like you see it happen in music all the time. Like you even have like the greatest song, arguably the greatest, well, yeah, songwriter of all time, Bob Dylan, giving interviews like, I don't know how I wrote those songs. I couldn't do it now. It's like, oh, that fucking sucks to hear, dude.
Why, dude? Why?
You're supposed to
What's your
like,
theory on that? I've got to know your theory on that. Because Chelsea and I just watched that Beatles documentary, Get Back, this past month.
uh,
You've seen it, right?
yeah, oh yeah,
Man,
definitely,
I
it's
mean,
killer,
it was one of the best
unbelievable.
things I've ever seen. Period. Like point
Oh yeah,
blank, unbelievable.
yeah, all
And then,
that, they kept all that footage for so long. That's crazy,
how
man,
do you
because that
sit on that
footage is so
footage? Jesus
killer.
Christ!
I have no idea.
And then like
No idea.
And then coincidentally, one of my friends or someone was like, "Hey, have you seen that show on YouTube or whatever, the segment with, I forgot the dude's name, where he does like carpool karaoke, where he's like singing with rock stars in the have you seen that? It's amazing. It's like one of these late night talk show
Carpool
hosts
karaoke.
drives around with like
Oh, is that James Corden? James
yes,
Corden or whatever his
freaking
name? Yeah,
amazing.
yeah. And he has like Adele.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we're
Those
so
are so fun.
we had like just finished the Beatles documentary. I was like, oh my God, like amazing. And then within like 2 weeks, someone recommended that show and I saw Paul McCartney was on it. And I was like thinking to myself, like the stuff you're talking about, and I gotta know your theories. Like, why isn't like watching the documentary, Paul is like just like he just like fucking burps and a new fucking hit song comes out, like just constantly, just one after the other. Like he wrote Let It Be in like, or wrote a lot of Let It Be in like 2 weeks. And I'm like, how is this fucking possible? And then it's like where'd that go? Where did that magic go? Like why is Paul McCartney or why are the Stones or why are any of these people not, or Robert Plant or any of these people, like where does that thing go? Like do they lose the hunger? Is it like something they lose connection with? Like where does that
It's
go?
I don't know, man, but it's rampant in the music business.
Like why?
Like it happens with everybody. Like most bands, like you're shocked if they put out two good records.
Yeah.
Most bands, if they have their freshman release will be like put them on the map, and then they just kind of ride that wave forever,
Mm.
or at whatever level it is. You know, um, I don't know, man. I know that like the spirit that would, and I'm going to call it a spirit because there's no other way to like really describe it, but the spirit that would meet me when I was young and successfully writing, like in that hour where the song was delivered. I've never ever felt at any moment that I was, when I was young, that I was actually, and I'm not saying that what I wrote was good or bad. This is just what it was. This was what the experience was. I
Mm-hmm.
never felt like I was fishing for any of it. It was just there.
Mm.
It just came. Now, whether it was good or bad or whatever. And now I have less, I have, I guess, shorter and less frequent windows of that. And I'll get a little glimpse, and then I finish it up by kind of searching and more crafting around it. When I used to get these things in whole deliveries, you
Right.
know, and there's certain people that just seem to really tap into this thing, and they get, you know, like Ryan Adams, I think is a good example. Um, I don't know him or anything. I do like a lot of his music, but you know, somebody told me that worked with him once that he would like write a fully realized song in like no time. He would do it in the studio. Like, oh, what are we going to record today? Oh, give me a minute, and write some killer. Like it was just like, and it seems like there's some sort of connect. It doesn't even seem. There's definitely some sort of connection to like, this is going to sound weird, but it's a connection to a database where the songs are already written.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's what it feels like, at least. You know, or it's just an idea. You get the idea. You know, like what's the difference, right?
Yeah.
But uh, yeah, like that's why like I would get like when I've written something that really hits with me, I usually get emotional over it on like a lot of levels. One, because it's exactly what I wanted to, it's exactly how I wanted it to turn out. And so like, and those type of things are so rare because in every creative endeavor, it's like, when do you get one that turns out exactly how you want it? Right. And so I'll get emotional in those situations just because it's like, I feel like I'm getting water for the first time. Like I'm a plant that's like dying, but I just want to be alive and I want to be a plant.
Yeah.
And then it's almost like I get like water, like spiritual water to keep going another day, to wake up tomorrow and try again. And then that's going to last me, you know, for a while. And but I'd be lying if I didn't say that those waterings are rarer and rarer, you know. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't, like, it happened to me the other day. I wrote and recorded something all in one day that I actually liked. And like by the time I got back to the house, I was like a different person. Rhonda was like, "Whoa, what's going on with you?" I'm like, "Oh, I actually lied." You know, I was like, I was out of my shell, and I had my little speaker, and I showed it to her, And I just sent it off to a couple of friends, and like I sent it off to like the 4 friends that I send that when stuff's in its infancy, I send it off to for whatever reason, and 3 of them got back to me and 1 didn't. So I guess that's like what's that, like a 75% success rate?
Yeah. It's
That's
crazy.
just pretty good, you know?
It's crazy how much of at least speaking for myself, how much of like my self-esteem or like self-worth comes from how successful I am to do those things like you just said.
I know.
It's so
100%, man.
It's kind of fucked up, and I wish it wasn't.
Yeah.
But when I'm not able to do that, I just feel like really not good, you know. And then when
I know
I'm like, yes.
It's savage, man. Like it's the ups and downs are. It's like no wonder I'm fucking bipolar, or I think I'm fucking bipolar, dude. No wonder. It's like
Right.
look at how things unfold in my life, and it's not because I'm not going after it all the time.
Yeah.
Dude, I'll burn whole months. Like that's when it really hits. Like it's actually right now. Well, until the other day, 2 days ago or 3 days ago was when I made that song. But I've been home for a month trying to get things done, and I've just been failing left and right, dude. I have projects people are waiting on. I'm not happy with them. I don't know what to do. I don't want to. I'm just not happy with it. So I'm gonna sit here. There's one record I'm mixing. Luckily, there's not a rush, but I eventually had to like, cause I keep my hours logged, charged per hour, and I had to shut that off because I should have been able to do it in that much time. And I can't like go out there and be like, oh, it took 160 hours to mix your record. Like, dude, it doesn't take that long, you know?
Right.
And I'm still, that's where I'm at, and I'm still doing it, and I'll get it. But it's like, yeah, it's rough because I also don't want to put anything out that's not my best. But the muse or whatever it is, I don't know, man. It's not always there, you know. And so
I almost feel
I don't know. I don't know where I'm going.
I almost feel sort of like envious when there's like creators that can, I don't know whether they're using like formulas or whatever they're doing, but there's like, they just have a set way of doing something, and they just, here's how I do it. Here's the middle step. Here's the end, done. Whereas it sounds like
some people are just machines.
Sounds like you and I are like,
some people are just machines.
Like I have much more of like an intuitive process where it's kind of like takes me around. It's a journey. Things change. I shift. Blah blah blah. And like you said, like some paintings will take me like 3 months, and I'm like, I don't know why it took me 3 months. I wish it didn't. Like I don't want it to take that long.
Yeah.
Just that's how long it took.
Yeah.
Me. I don't know. I have no answer. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and then I forget who I was talking to the other day. I think it was, I have these conversations a lot with my dad because I'll grab him from the house and bring him out to listen to what I've done. And he doesn't seem to understand at all why I'm frustrated with what I'm doing at all, because it all just blows him away. He can't believe any of it. Of course, I'm his kid. He's biased. He's always been biased toward my playing, like always. Like we would go, but it's always just been that way. He always thinks I'm doing the best. He always thinks I'm, and that's good support, right? And my mom too. So I guess like my point is like, you're that guy to somebody, dude. Like I would have never guessed that you're having any trouble, because you crank out good shit, and you're like a master of the hustle, or at least it seems. Like you got your online presence down, and your mailing lists, and you do all that stuff. You got a podcast. Like you're a hustler.
Yeah.
And so there's probably plenty of people out there that are like, "Fuck, man, how does Jay Alders do it? Like, how does he even do it? Like, how does he make that many paintings? Like, how many paintings does he have? I only have like 2 paintings. He's got like 200. You know what I mean?
You know how how it is though, man. It's like you're always
for sure.
The hard, it's like, so when I like critique myself, it's not that I don't think what I'm doing is good. Like I really do think that what I'm doing is good. However, I feel like I have so much more trying to get out, and I either don't have the time, I don't have the ability, I don't have whatever that thing is. Like it feels like a fucking fire hose, and it's trying to come out of like this little pinhole, and it's just like it's all this stuff is in there, and I'm like, oh, like why? Like
Yeah, and then and then it backs up and it drives you a little bit
And it makes your
nuts,
fucking head inflate. And
you
then
know?
it feels like also like I'm half,
Yeah.
it feels like I'm half-assing a lot of stuff. Like I think the stuff that I'm doing is good, but if I was doing all the same exact things to the level that I know I should be or could be, it would be much different. Like the other day I was like putting my kids to bed and like I think my son Judah was saying this. He's like, I don't know, one of my sons was saying, he's like, Daddy, you don't really paint that much. I'm like, oh, fuck. like
Oh,
because they
oh,
like usually when I'm painting, like they're at school, right? So they don't see it.
yeah.
But then it's like when I'm doing work when they're around, it's stuff that's like busy work stuff because I don't want them to be around when I'm actually in the zone. So like they'll see me emailing, they'll see me doing whatever, like I'm packaging artwork for someone, and it's like it I knew why they were saying it because like I'm doing that stuff when they're at school, but it was also kind of hit with me because I'm like, you know what, I'm really not doing the actual thing that I love enough, even though I'm doing it. It's like so
Mhm.
much of my time is doing all the other stuff that people, see the stuff, the peripheral, the surface
Yeah.
level shit, you know?
Yeah. It's like that thing that I'm always doing, I don't do it enough.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. So like
Get it?
that's what it is. That thing I'm always doing and I'm so obsessed with, and it is my whole life. Man, I just don't do it enough.
Amen. Amen.
That's what it feels like, bro.
What is like the dude, tell me, you have a crazy all right, first of all, let's admit is as hard as much of a struggle it's been at times, you've got a fucking surreal crazy job, right? Like all your gigs, all the stuff.
Oh yeah.
What for people that are like you said, like you're hardcore few hundred fans, but then also people that like see you play all the time, like they probably have a certain idea of what it must be like, right? I want to know what is like what's the highlight reel, but also what's like the low light reel, like what is the side of it that's just like unfucking
Oh,
believable, but then also what's like this stuff that maybe you haven't talked about yet that's like this fucking is really hard, this sucks, but also like the whoa, give me like the
that's
high and low.
okay. That's easy. That's easy. I got
Okay.
it. It came
Okay.
because the best and the worst is
Like,
so memorable, right? Those are the
yeah.
big memories. So like, okay, we'll start with the worst. Let's start with the worst because we can
Okay.
only go up from there. Okay. I think it was okay. So Mike Bedard was still in the band. So what year would this have been? Was it 16, 17? I don't know. But something happened. We were going to tour Europe, and the buses that bands get that have self dignity and self respect were all taken. So Donnie found this. He's like the way he was told that it was a Sprinter van that had bunks, and
Okay.
it was all we could get. And we were playing every single day, so it wasn't like we were going to be going to get in hotels or anything. Like we were driving, play, drive, play. We play every day. It's insane. Our touring schedule is like nobody can really nobody can fuck with Donnie and I. Like really, like nobody even tries with the schedule. It's grueling, right? So, anyways, but it makes it go by quicker. You're out, you're working. There's no like crazy downtime. It works out okay. We get to Amsterdam Schiphol Airport. Schiphol, I don't know how it's pronounced.
Hmm.
And this dude pulls up in a Mercedes Benz converted cargo truck. Where in the back of it, there's 2x4 bunks in the back of a box truck, basically. Now there was access to the front. It wasn't like a U-Haul truck, but it was like pretty close. And the suspension was rated for freight, not for people. No heater, no lights, nowhere to sit. The whole thing was like the only people that rent this thing are like punk rock bands. So the whole thing smells like vomit and just sin. It was horrible, dude. And we did 40 shows in a row on that. And we called it the rock tumbler because it felt like you were at a rock tumbler at night. He's just bouncing all around inside the bunk, you know? And our driver was like so angry, like cussing at people, and he never showered. He stunk. It was gnarly. Nice enough guy to us, but just like
Yeah.
there, and and we did that. And I remember Adam Topol was on that tour too because Donnie let him open. And Adam was an absolute champion with just remaining positive as he does, you know. And so he really helped me out. Because if he wouldn't have been there with his like, this was before I was sober, but if he wouldn't have been there with like his, because he's a straight shooter. He's been sober for like 25 years.
Mm.
With his constant positivity and like thankfulness to be there and all that kind of stuff, I think maybe I would have lost it, you know. But he was just like this. He was like a pillar of just positivity, and so I got through it. So Adam, if you're listening, thank you. But yeah, the rock tumbler, worst, terrible, just awful. And then the next year we went back, the exact same thing happened, right? So this is 2 years in a row.
Mm.
But Donavon said, we can't have that same one. And the guy sent over pictures of the new one that looked much better, you know? And so we're like, all right, I guess so. And he told me it was going to be much better. And when we rolled over there, I swear it was the same one that pulled up. They just painted it silver.
Oh my God.
And we did it again. So I've spent 80 days and nights on a box truck in winter in Europe.
Fuck.
I did it twice. The second time, I would finish off a bottle of whatever we had lying around just so I could get in. So every single night I passed out blackout drunk. That's the only way I could pull it off. It was just miserable. Okay, so now let's cut over to the good shit.
Okay, cool.
So I've been twice to Necker Island to play, which is Richard Branson's private island.
Whoa, no way.
I've played gigs there. I've been there to play 2 different times.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's just like as badass as you could think it is. We could put up in these crazy villas. Like we have like I just pick up a phone and like a chef answers, "Oh, you want?" And they'll bring like, I mean, it was totally insane, dude. And it was really cool. Like this was one of the last time I went, I was sober. So I've been there twice. The first time I wasn't, second time I wasn't drinking. And that was like my first real gnarly test that I passed where I knew like, oh, I got this. Because I was like, I don't know what this place costs a night to rent, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was like, 10 grand a night or something that we were staying in. I don't know. It was beyond. It was like a joke how nice it was. And then you just call up and whatever you want, like literally whatever you want, would be brought. And so, and we were there for like 4 days or something. And it was just super badass. And then I had to like downplay it big time to Rhonda, she's like, "You're doing what?" Like, "Oh, I'm just hanging out like the lap of it was like lifestyles of the rich and famous, dude." And so that's like, and those 2 trips to Necker Island are probably the standout for most like bougie high end. But there's been other experiences we've had that were just super magical. Like we went and played the Chopu event in Tahiti once.
Wow.
Yeah, and so that was really, really cool. And like I paddled out on a canoe. I didn't know what Chopu was. I'm not a waterman.
Yeah.
They're like, "Yeah, paddle out. Here's a kayak. Paddle out to it." I got close to it, but I was just like, "Oh, I'm not going anywhere near that." This wave was insane. These people were getting smashed. All these boats were on the side of it, like floating together and like pushing off each other with their feet. It was just chaos.
Jesus.
I went back in, but this dude, the dude that was like, when you go there, you like stay with locals, right? There's no hotel. So you're staying in people's houses. And I think because of that wave and because of the surfing culture, like some of these homeowners have like made little, like nice little rooms for people to stay in or whatever. Mine was super trippy though, because how can I say this without being, I'm just going to have to risk being, I don't know, not being PC, but the dude that put us up was clearly gay. Like, and I think that's a rare thing for the island there because, there's only so many people. But my room had like, I don't know, I don't want to overshoot it, but at least 300 dick statues in it.
I didn't see it going there.
So I'm just like hanging out with like all these dick statues in this place, right? And this dude comes in. That is true, bro. That is true. Lots of them, dude. From little bitty minis to like big old beasts, dude. Rock and crystal and all kinds of shit. This guy was into it. So, anyways, Dave Rostovich was my roommate.
Oh my God, that's like something that's only a it's like something only like a gay man could do, because like straight men don't have like, you wouldn't have like a bunch of statues of vaginas. You just wouldn't. It's not like a thing you would do necessarily.
You wouldn't really have a bunch of statues of anything. I mean, unless you're like into comic books and you're
True,
collecting figurines and stuff. But this guy was like, this guy was like collecting GI Joe figures, but they were dicks. Like he was into it, dude. Anyway, so
Do they have like
anyways,
they have like a kung fu grip?
you know what, man? I walked in and I was just kind of,
Like,
it's one of those things like I was so just like blown away by it. I didn't even know how to feel about it. Oh, and the other thing, the dicks weren't even the weirdest thing about the room. The weirdest thing about the room is there was these just insanely big spiders that would just come out of nowhere at random. Big suckers, dude.
whoa.
Um, but they were like not dangerous, I guess, but they sure looked dangerous. And when you're a white dude, you're like a not local guy
Yeah.
staying there and you don't know. I mean, I can tell you every spider in this desert, but I had no idea what that was or what it was going to do to me, so, or if it wanted to eat me or whatever. But anyway, so this gentleman, the penis statue collector, he came by one day and he said, at 3 o'clock, my friend's picking you up in a boat. So be out there at 3. And I was like, okay. Because this was another one of those trips. It's like, and this has happened a couple times with different tours, but like every once in a while, I find myself in a situation where we got like one gig and like 2 weeks just chilling, which is killer, So we were there for a while. And so I was with Eric and Craig.
Oh man.
And they were in another room. And so we met out there for 3 o'clock boat pickup, right?
Okay.
And this dude, sure enough, pulls up in this boat in this dinghy, and we hop in, and he takes us around the side of the island and then up this river. And then we just kept taking the river up until it like basically like skid into the dirt, like he turned into a stream. He just like beached it, and we got out and hiked up this. The whole time we don't even know what's going on. We hike up this place a little bit more, and then we got to this place, and then he looked at us. He didn't speak in English, but he was able to communicate that this was called the heart of Tahiti, right? And dude, there was this big, crazy like rock face that came out of this cave and went straight up into the air, kind of a thing. It almost looked, it was a big cave, and then like it was a natural like cathedral ceiling thing that came up out of rock. And you can see that there was like water in there, and then it went back into black, like darkness, And the guy's like, yeah, let's get in. And we swim all the way nobody's got a flashlight. It's like you're getting in this water. And dude, Tahiti has these eels that are just horrifying, bro. They're like 60 pounds and they're everywhere. You see them all over the place, like big old, definitely not like, I wasn't feeling like for sure there's not one of those eels in there. I was actually more feeling like for sure that's where they like live and that's where they mate, like, so Craig was like, I'm not doing it, And me and Eric are like, all right, let's go. So we get in this thing and we swim for what seemed like 100 yards in the dark, but it wasn't that bad. And you kind of orient yourself by looking back and seeing where the cave entrance is, and you can see the light coming through there, and then you get back into it.
Yeah,
it wasn't 100 yards, maybe it was 50 though. It was far, and I remember like I was like, I don't know how deep this is, but I'm not putting my foot down because I don't want it to touch anything. I just want to I'm like swimming on the top of the water, like. Because I was freaked out. And we get in there, and then next thing you know, our hands are on a wall, and this dude like lit like a torch up, it was like a, I don't know, some kind of a flashlight thing that he didn't bother to pull out until we got there. Don't know why. And it was this giant face that was just completely covered in like ancestral paintings, and it was so sick. When he lit that thing up and I looked up there, I was just like, oh my God, this is like, all of a sudden, this is one of the best days of my life.
Wow.
Like, holy crap. And we're looking at this thing and there's all these just old, they would paint with something that was white. And there's like all this like, oh, it was so badass, dude. And then we got out of there. So yeah, like I've seen some things that like, to be honest, like I've seen things that like, I'm not comfortable telling like lots of people in my life, because it's like, I don't want anybody thinking that they haven't done anything.
Yeah.
And I've got just like a laundry list of these things, dude. One time we got like this gig playing weekend gigs for Corona. We would play on Friday and Saturday, Donnie and I. And then
Yeah.
they put us up, and it was like for 7 weeks. And then they put us up in this condo on Coolangatta Beach in Australia for 7 weeks. And we just like didn't do, I just did yoga and went to the sauna. That's all I did for 7 weeks and got paid. It's like, dude,
Unreal.
yeah, yeah,
But like you said,
super
it's like
killer.
so bipolar because you have that, but then you have like the freaking truck and or the whatever
The
the
rock tumbler,
well, yeah, the
the
rock
rock
tumbler.
tumbler.
Yeah, it's like so
Yep. And you
fucking.
got to be ready for both. You got to be ready for both of them.
It's like you got to
So,
realize it's like it's you, if you look at it from the grand perspective of like seeing yourself as like a 90-year-old, it's like what a great story. Like you have the chapter of like being in a rock tumbler, you have the chapter of like these surreal, crazy experiences, and then yeah,
yeah, man.
even though it's like normalized to you, like you've been on stage or mingling with some like really big names, and I know like I know that for you it's normalized and it's just like, oh, that's so and so, no big deal. But like looking at it from a outside perspective, like that's pretty cool to be able to be
For sure.
connected with people that are an icon in society. Like
Yeah,
that's cool, even though they're just people.
yeah,
It's still pretty cool to say that.
yeah. I mean, I am the luckiest dude ever. I really am. But it just turns out that the luckiest dude ever has also lots of problems every single day.
Right, which we all do.
Yeah, which everybody does, you know. And so that's, back to my whole like trying not to compare myself to like really anybody else. It's like you can't.
Yeah.
It's like that's a slippery slope. I could probably find 10 guitar players on Instagram that are better than me just in just a few minutes. Like maybe even the first 10 posters. Like that's what it's like now. Or at least that I would feel are better or for whatever reason.
Right, right.
Um yeah, man. I'm super, super, super lucky. And well, yeah. And then but also back to what I said earlier, where luck has nothing to do with it. I charged this. Like I manifested this shit in my life. And I
Mhm.
started thinking about it when I was like 6 years old.
Yeah.
It all started with me. My grandpa gave me a roll of butcher paper, and I'd pull out about 4 feet of it. I'd draw pictures of guitars and bands and name them and draw them a backdrop. It actually started as an artist. I started as an artist that only drew pictures of bands, and then my dad got me a guitar, and then I didn't draw ever again.
Yeah.
Just like,
Ah,
yeah,
it's
I cut out like Sears catalog guitars and hang them on my wall, and all kinds of stuff.
like
Yeah.
it's I feel similar. Like for me, like my kids were asking me at bedtime, we have great conversations. I'm sure you and Juju do also. It's like when you put the kids to bed, it's like everything comes out and like they're like,
Mm.
Daddy, what did you want to do like when you were our age? And I'm like, all I've ever wanted to do is like be an artist. Like and there's days where I'm like, why couldn't I have wanted to be like in finance or something instead, like
Yeah.
but it just so happened that that's all I've ever wanted to do. And so the fact like you and I have manifested the good and the bad in all this, it's pretty cool. That's a pretty cool thing to see.
Yeah. Yeah, man. And also just keeping in mind that everybody's struggling no matter what is it's not like it's comforting because it's unfortunate, but it's like, there's nothing wrong with me because I'm going through all this stuff. This
I,
just happens to be my lot,
I've been trying
you
to
know?
lately I've been trying to kind of be a little more aware and try to like reverse engineer the moments in my life when things really, really were doing, or at least from my interpretation, we're doing really, really well from a creative standpoint or from a mental health standpoint. Like I'm trying to like think like what patterns was I into mentally, what habits was I taking on. Like it's interesting when you like reflect back at like your highlight reel as you interpret it, and you realize like certain habits kind of fall off, certain mindset sets sort of shift, like the way you approach your craft shifts, and you realize like, oh, when things were really freaking flying, I was doing this and that, or thinking whatever. And it's like it's important to do that, kind of take inventory of where you have been,
Yeah,
you go.
totally. Yeah, man, for sure. Yeah. But once again, it's like, my especially when it comes to like my health obsessions and all their inconsistencies. That's the story of my health journey. It's like big ups, big downs,
Hmm.
big ups, big downs. Like I've been 315 pounds, I've been 225. Like big ups and in the last 10 years, have been both of those. Um, and it's funny because it's like the more I learn about it, and the more I learn about myself and how I act and how I need to adjust to keep from the big pendulum swings from happening. I learn things that make my old wins not really seem like wins anymore. Like, oh, I used to always be trying to go back to that. So that was like when I thought things were flowing, but now I don't want that anymore. So that was actually just another area of confusion.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that might be a sign of like truly learning about yourself is when you let your ideals change,
Right.
as far as what you've already accomplished. I mean, I'm sitting here right now, been doing this for 20 years, solid, hard, and I have yet to do the thing I'm supposed to do, man. And I'm just searching it out like all the time.
Yeah.
Looking for it all the time, like scouring
Mm-hmm.
for the thing I'm supposed to do, you know? And I I'm not worried about whether or not I find it. I'm just worried about that I continue to look for it. And I guess that's just that's what it's all about for me now. It's like it's all about the search and the hunt. And that's what the reward is. I have a lot of very, very, very successful friends in music, like multi-million dollars, 40,000 people show up to see them. And a lot of those guys, well, one in particular says that he misses the hustle so bad. He misses the pursuit because once it was given to him, then the pursuit is gone. And
Mm.
that's the exciting part of it.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like he doesn't enjoy his adoring fans, but he misses being hungry. And that's like hard to hear from somebody that's got everything you want,
Mm.
you know, that I'm actually lucky because I'm like still in it. That's where life happens, you know? So
Do you think like the hunger just should just change? Like he's not hungry, whoever we're talking about. I could make a guess, but like,
yeah,
like, maybe he's not hungry for the money or for the financial stability or whatever it might be, but like being hungry for like that next dose of dopamine, that next like validation that you're still good, you still got it, like,
I think so. But I think that what happens is the necessity for that next hit goes way down.
right.
Like it doesn't really matter if it happens or not.
Mm.
He's already completely validated. You know, he's already totally done it, way beyond what anybody ever thought he would, or maybe even beyond whatever he thought he would.
Right.
You know, and so like, yeah, he's going after it, but it's not ever the same because nothing's ever going to matter as much as the first time it really, really fucking happens when you really, really, really need it.
Yeah.
You know, like you're about to give up or you're just in the trenches, dude. And like, you don't know what to do anymore. And like, you're just trying so hard and trying so hard. And then something pops like that feeling. Oh my gosh. You only get that once, you know?
Yeah.
And when you're shooting for that, it's like, and then you get it and it's just going to be, I don't know, man. I think you know what I'm trying to say. It's like,
Yeah. No, I hear you. I feel like
so
I could imagine, like, I could play pretend in my head and imagine what that must feel like. I could just make a guess, but I would think you'd always still have that thing in you where you're like, am I still honoring the gift? Am I still like working for my muse?
yeah.
Am I still worth it? Am I still earning it? Or am I just, I can't
Mhm.
imagine letting go of that need to like see what I'm capable of,
Yeah, me neither. But like, you know, and I can't imagine being jaded by my own success, but I would like to
Like,
try to
give it a
be.
shot. Give me,
Yeah, it'd be awesome.
I'll take a
You know,
taste.
I know that it's more money, more problems, and that's what everybody says. But like, I'd like to learn that like on a
Yeah.
personal level. You
But
know?
it's like different problems. Like you don't no longer having like money doesn't solve your problems, I would assume. I don't know, but like I would imagine money solves all your money problems, which is a lot.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a lot, and I think that depending on how much money you have, you can
Yeah.
like
Right.
completely just it's gone. It's not even a thing.
Yeah,
You know?
that must be amazing.
I know, I know. I couldn't even imagine. Like rather than having to worry about it like 50 times a day, you don't have to worry
Yeah.
about it ever again.
But
Like,
then,
oh, that's nice.
But on the same note, though, we both have friends like that have shit tons of money that are working like jobs that would fucking kill me. Like I have friends in
Oh, for sure.
got some amazing friends that are amazing humans and just awesome to be around, and they've got fuck tons of money, but then they're I'll go out to dinner with them and they're envious of me, and I'm like,
Yeah.
because you know,
Yeah. Well, I'm not envious of those people. I'm only envious of the people that got that success through what I'm trying to do.
right.
You
Totally.
know, I know that I can't hold a job down. That's like one of the scariest things for me, man, to realize is that if this were to like seriously dry up, that's what scared me about quarantine more than anything.
Yeah.
Is that like if it seriously dries up, what am I going to do that I can do that I will do? And I
Right.
couldn't come up with one thing, dude.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not one. I was like blanked out, you know? So, um, yeah, as long as I can do it, I will. And hopefully something hits, man. Like that would be so cool, you know? But if not, that's fine too. You know, like I'm just going after it no matter what. I don't want to like tell my daughter, like, I don't want to show my daughter that it's okay to give up on your dreams.
Right. Oh man, that's a big one. That's a big one.
Yeah. 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 You can't do that. That's
Mm,
not, nope. So, I mean, it's okay for them to grow up and think that your dream was stupid, and like they, you know, it's even okay for them to wish that you maybe you didn't do it that way. You could have like paid for them to go to a big Ivy League school or something that maybe you couldn't afford or whatever. Like that's okay, but showing them that you're going to quit is not like in my book. It's not all right. You know, like
100%.
yeah, yeah. So,
Speaking of kids,
um,
my kids are getting out of school soon, so
sweet.
we're gonna wrap up soon. But before we do, I have a little smidge of time. I want to like know because I love I could talk to you for fucking hours. I feel
I know, man. It just flows. It's nice.
I
It's a good
mean,
thing.
what
And
like
nobody ever listens to me, so it's cool to like talk to. It's like, oh, Jay's listening to me. This is nice.
oh
And then
no.
whoever's watching this is going to be listening because what else are they doing there?
I mean, I get you, dude, on so many levels. I
Yeah,
genuinely get where you're coming from. And like we share a lot of weird obsessive, hobbies, interests, whatever. What either haven't we talked about yet that we can riff off of before we wrap up, and or what have we already talked about that you have some more thoughts on? Because I feel
dude, I have one. I
like
have
you
one
said,
thing that I wanted to say.
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I had one thing that I wanted to say with regard to our last talk, just to clear things up because I ended up herring out a couple of people that were close to me a little bit, and so I just wanted to like clarify. Like I was like on a full blown hypomanic trip out when we had our last conversation. I was on fire,
Mm,
right? I can hear it in my my talk when I listen to that podcast. It's very pressured and fast and just you know. It might still be now. I don't know. I'm just kind of letting it go. But I went through that whole podcast saying things about my wife that were negative and then never resolved them.
mm,
Um, and it wasn't because I didn't want like I never said anything good about her. I just said things that were hard, and that was my bad. And like my wife kicks ass, dude. She's killing it. She's about to graduate from college. She went to, she decided to like once Juniper was born and everything kind of stabilized, she's like, I'm gonna go back to school and try to, make a career. And she's totally doing that. She's got like 4 point something grade point average at her college and gonna graduate with honors. She's just killing it. And then she's gonna go into genetics and try to work with cancer treatment from a genetic standpoint. You know, and she's killing it. So, and she's a killer mom, and she's a good wife. And so that's just all that was. And it wasn't any different back then. I was just like,
yeah.
I mean, I was like, what, 3 months sober and just losing my shit, dude. And another thing I wanted to say too is like as far as anybody out there is trying to not drink, um, like I don't know. All I know is what it was like for me. I know some people have it like really bad, and I know that depending on how much actual alcohol you're putting into your system each day, these things change. The dependence levels change. So, maybe there are people out there that drink so bad that they're never going to get over it or whatever. But like as of right now, like I do not care whether I ever have a drink again. Like I don't even miss it. It's not a big deal. I wish somebody around the time I did your last podcast would have like been like, hey man, just hang in there. It's going to be totally fine. And
Mm,
like said that to me in a convincing way. Um, because mostly I was hearing that from people that have been in the program for like 25 years. So in the back of my head, I was like, or 30 years or 40 years or whatever it is, 5 years. Like I was talking to tons of people. I never went to AA myself, but they all kind of said the same thing. Like it gets easier, just hang in there. But I was kind of thinking like, well, shit, man, you've been going to AA for 10 years. Like that must be because you still are afraid. Like, when's this going to end? You know?
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, I'm taking a long time to say that, like, if you're anything like me, give it a year and then, you know, I think that the last time I had, like, it started off the first 6 months was like 15 times a day I wanted to drink. And it sucked. It was like wearing me out, dude. And then the second, and then it calmed down to like 2 or 3 times a day. And then the second year it was like once a day solid, but comparatively it was easier. And then by year, the start of my third year, it was like once a month. And then it kind of just went away. And then, I'm 5 months into my fourth year now, and I literally don't even, like, it's not something I even want at all. It's so crazy. I never thought that I'd actually get there. Like I want it as bad as I want. I don't know. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. To go out and eat some dirt or something. Like I don't want to do it. It's not there anymore. Like left. It's like you get better.
I feel like all habits are like that. Although obviously being an alcoholic or having an addiction is an extreme, but like I feel like when you change your diet of anything, eventually your palate changes, like your tastes change, your cravings change. A lot of these, again, I'm not like an addict, although I definitely feel like I could have been if I let myself get there. Because like for a while I was doing a lot of shit in all different directions. But I'm so proud of you, man. Because like I was just thinking, I think we met like it's going on 16 years, and like when I first,
that's crazy, dude.
it is fucking crazy. When I first, I first met you, like I was partying crazy, and you were partying really fucking hard, like really.
We had a wild night. Remember, dude? We went out to that bar. That was crazy. That place was nuts, dude.
Which bar?
Yeah, I don't know. We went to some bar, and I don't know. I was not behaving myself.
I remember some the first one that pops in my head is I remember some crazy a crazy night at the that place in Long Island in Montauk.
Oh no, I'm talking about a place in Brazil. This was in Brazil.
I mean, Brazil was fucking.
As I wipe my nose.
You went there. I was thinking like
there
was some of them those moments. Like I was thinking the first one was like you were fucking going crazy at Surf Lodge in Long Island.
Oh yeah,
a lot of that going
dude.
On, but
you know what's funny, man, is like every single time after those kind of nights, I'd wake up the next day and hate myself. I'm so glad I don't have to. I never hate myself in the morning anymore. The morning is I wake up and I'm like, that's my time to like try to get the day to get like try to wrangle the day with a plan, And that was just never on the agenda ever. Like it was mostly like wake up like, oh, like where am I? How am I gonna feel better? I can't drink again because that would be crazy. Okay, let's like what am I gonna do? Go make some greasy breakfast and just some coffee and try to get through it. And I just don't miss that, man.
I never was like a classified addict, but I was definitely using substances as a crutch for both like social as well as like creativity. And I feel like those were the two for me. That was the two hardest things. Like when Chelsea got pregnant, that's kind of when I was like, you know what? Like I need to be on my A game. I want to be a dad that's present, that's clear headed. Like, so I just kind of, I'll still have like a half a glass of wine every couple months. But other than that, I don't really drink. And it's amazing to try to figure out who you are when that's gone. Like, because so many of like, social connections are based around that activity. And like, when I stopped being like the drunk or stoned guy all the time, it's amazing how many of those like circles of people no longer have much in common with you anymore. So like that social really hard for me, but also like the creativity side, like trying to tap into something in a clear, sober head for a lot of people seems impossible. And it definitely did for me at one point.
Well, marijuana is like maybe the single best creative like aid,
Are you smoking?
But I mean, there's been a couple times like when I got 4 years, I kind of gave myself carte blanche at that point to be like, if you want to change the channel with like a little here and there, go ahead. But for the most part, that doesn't, I'm on this straight and narrow, you
Mhm.
know, kind of and I'm in that mindset, you
Right.
know, and even on the days that like I'll let myself. So I guess I can't call myself technically sober anymore. I guess the term for it is California sober, but the California part of my sobriety is so negligible, dude. It's almost not even worth mentioning, right?
Right. Right.
Um, so yeah, um, it's mostly yeah. I just I got so into this. I got so into the habit of just being completely sober through everything that I'm doing, that nothing like the benefits from that weed used to give me, like when I used to get all stoned and jam out or whatever, like I would feel like I could really feel it and like I was really in it and whatever. Like that's not a thing anymore. It just spins me out, you know, like for the most part of this it makes me like almost like it throws me into a psychosis.
Mm.
It's fun, but it's like definitely like I'm riding the line, and I definitely feel like when I do that, that I'm trading my future for like the present,
Right.
you know, like you know, and that's like not something I'm into at all. Not to say I'm not going to do it here and there. Like I'm not even going to sit here and say that I'm going to not drink forever. The whole point is just like for me is becoming the best version of myself that I possibly can. And, you know, up until 4.5 years ago, I was drinking too much to ever let that be a possibility.
Yeah.
So that had to go, you know. There's been times over the last 3 or 4 years that I've almost talked myself into being like, it's cool, you can do it. You got this now, you know? And I
Mhm.
probably do, you know, honestly. I know a lot of people like that's like another thing with the AA people is like that's how you get hooked back in or whatever. But like I really feel like I could trust myself with a lot now, you know?
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, I guess I went off on another tangent, but it gets so much better, dude. I mean, you know how it is. You don't hardly. You say you have a half a glass of wine. That's not drinking. You might
I
as
don't,
well,
I
you
don't,
know, not.
I don't, if someone says to me
Yeah,
drink, I say no. Like I'll have a quarter glass of wine, like every once in a blue moon.
yeah, man. And you know what else is really crazy is the longer you're kind of sober or whatever, and other people drinking and how it affects their life becomes so much more obvious, and it's such a turn off.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, oh, thank God, like I don't have to deal with that. Like that must be so hard.
Hmm.
You know, or with any substance really. Like, um, you know, if you have to do something every single day, it's like it's time to rethink it. You know.
Right.
Um, but anyway, yeah. So like that's and I just really wanted to touch on that thing with Rhonda too because I listened to that and I was like, oh man, that came off kind of like I didn't want it to come off like
You
that.
know what?
You know what I mean?
I got to come to your defense here. I didn't. I hear where you're coming from because like it's always worse from our own perspective. But I didn't take that from the first one. I just took it as like you were talking to two, Chelsea and I. You were talking. We're just friends talking, and when like
Right.
when friends
Yeah.
talk, you have a tendency to like sway a certain way, wherever your head is.
Right.
I don't. But
Yeah.
I respect where you come into her defense. But I don't think you. I've only
Yeah.
speak highly of her. Like from the moment you guys first started dating, you would always like talk her up, how talent
Yeah.
she is, and you guys were like so passionate, especially at the beginning. Like it was amazing to see that kind of turn into what it is, So
Yeah. She's rad, and I just and I don't necessarily feel like I did either, but
you
it was
wanted to,
brought to my attention
right?
that maybe I should have. So I am. You
Fair
know,
enough.
not by Rhonda. So
Okay.
she would, you know,
Fair
she's
enough.
all good, but so yeah, and then man, I was just like, it's so crazy to be sitting here now and doing this. I've been on two podcasts in my life, both Jay Elder's podcasts,
I'm
and
honored.
yeah, man, and it's so crazy to think about the last time we did this, and now it's been like 4 years ago or 3 years ago or something.
I'm gonna
The
guess
first one,
or at least
or
four, I'd say. Yeah, you know what? I probably said something like this to you before because it's how I feel, so I must have said it. But like, I genuinely appreciate like us being friends for this long. Like, I don't know what your experience is in the music industry. I only have a peripheral experience in the music industry from people like yourself or other musicians that I know. But
Mhm.
from my kind of backstage view of stuff, there's a lot of nonsense from what I see. I'm not in the world like you are. So the fact that like you've maintained like your humility, you're so down to earth, and you're so like eclectic and sort of like a renaissance man in your view of life. Like I really appreciate that a lot. So
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. And, I can tell you this too. Like my industry is like dominated by egomaniacs.
hmm,
Like I would say even sociopaths. That's like usually what you're dealing with. Um, so I definitely realize that and do not want to bring that kind of energy into my experience with it, like whatsoever. So I'm glad to hear you say that. I try to like be, even though I can be standoffish too. Um, it's funny, dude. Like my daughter probably has um she probably has autism, but nobody really knows
mhm.
because she's just like kind of doesn't really you can't really fit her in perfectly to any. Um, but but it was so funny. Like when I learned that about her, I kind of started going through, and then they had her symptoms of what they saw as, um, whatever, like red flags that could be why they think she's got autism, whatever. And then I was like, dude, I do all that same shit.
Really.
Yeah, like a lot of the stuff that my daughter does, kind of like that she doesn't have control over, I started doing in my late 30s.
Okay.
A lot of it is like physical tick type stuff. Um, wild imaginative dream things that like took me away.
Mhm.
I don't know that she's doing that, but just because I know that I do it and I see how she is, and we're closer to being the same person than we are different people, and so I just know. Um, and the reason I'm telling you this is because sometimes I just can't, when I'm on the road, I just can't talk to anyone. Like I got to be alone. And so I'm glad to hear you say that, because I think a lot of times I wouldn't be surprised if there were some people out there, fans and whatnot, that had stories of me being really standoffish, because sometimes I just can't do it, dude. Like it's
Mhm.
not even something that I can force myself through. Like I got to go get in the bunk, close the curtain, and just you know be alone.
Right.
Um, and because of that, like I almost tell I tell Rhonda what I really think about things. And I have a couple of friends that I tell how I really think about stuff. They know who they are. And I'll call them and we'll have those conversations. Some of them I call or I text to every day. They're really close people that are really close. Um, but there's less than 5 people that like, and you're one because I come on your show and tell you these things.
Thank you,
There's
brother.
less than there's less than 5 people that know who I am. You know, and that's like sad, kind of, but also like I don't know, man. I definitely am super, super reserved with how I feel about things, because uh I'm proud of the way that I think about things, I think. Especially now,
Yeah,
you know. So
I get that, man.
anyways, this is like catharsis for me, dude. Like coming on and just it's like therapy, you know?
You know what, dude? It's like I first of all, I get what you're saying. I feel like the older I get, the circle of people that not only that I want to be around, but the circle of people that I feel like have any interest in me have shrunk so small. And they're most days I'm totally cool with it because I like being selective with who I'm around. There's other days where I'm like, Jesus, I wish I had like I see people that have friends for 30 years, like super close groups of friends, and I'm like, I don't have that. Like I feel like
Yeah.
it's like you get comfortable in your own skin, but then it's also like, wow, I'm really fucking weird, I guess. Like people don't like I think there's a certain group of people, and I know you have this too, where it's like people that maybe they like you and you like them, and there's that, and it's genuine, it's not fake, but then it's like
Right.
they almost like admire who they think you are, but then it's like that's not.
Yes. I have tons of those kind of friends, man.
Yeah,
Tons. I got a lot of friends like that. Yeah.
like for
Yeah, but
me,
like the ones that I'm not afraid to say what I think around.
yeah.
That's a rare person in my life.
Well,
You
so
know,
I
it's
think
not even a fear though. It's just it's not fear. I'm cautious about it. That's all.
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say. that it's like one of the disadvantages for people like us not getting like traditional jobs is like the money. But like for me, like your job is way more social than mine. For me, a lot of it is like I don't have like coworkers or people that like I don't have a lot of people that kind of get me or get why I'm doing what I'm doing. You know, like
Yeah, right.
I have artist friends, but they're more like you know, I have a lot of artist acquaintances. But I feel like
Mhm.
artists and musicians are so like I don't know if fickle is the word, but like have such different reasons why they're there. And it's like on paper, you would think that a lot of us would all be just hanging out all the time, but everyone's got their own journey that brought them here, you know? So like I guess what I'm getting at in a long roundabout way is like the fact that like you and I can connect over like fitness and parenting and music and creative process and blah blah blah, all these different things. Like it's very like both cathartic and like nice. I guess that's a pathetic
Yeah.
word, but it's
No, but that's what it is.
have
Yeah,
that.
that's what
You know what
it
I
is.
mean,
Nice.
I don't have people to like say, "Hey, do you get me? I get you." You know, like so I appreciate that.
Well, it definitely reminds you how important it is and how rare it is. You
Yes,
know, that's what it is.
especially like
So
in
it's
this,
good stuff, man.
especially like in this world that I'm peripherally connected with through like the collaborations I've done or like the things I've done. It's like I don't really have a lot of even though like I know a lot of other rock star people, you know, I don't have an artists. You're one of the few people that is beyond that. So thank you, brother. And
Right on. Yeah. No, my pleasure, man. Likewise. Yeah, for
on that
sure.
I do got to wrap up in a minute because Chelsea's texting me. Got to go get the kids. But is there anything else that either we can point people in the direction of finding you or any other last thoughts that enter
You
your
know,
head?
it's Grundy Med on Instagram. That's kind of the only thing I'll post on sometimes. I'm kind of like, I'm kind of laying low these days, dude, and just I'm
Yeah,
doing a lot of. I'm in my laboratory,
yeah, yeah.
you know, and then I hope that I can surface soon with something to share, but I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know what's happening. It's just there's a lot of work going into whatever's happening. I can tell you that.
That's
So
it's important to hear, man. I mean, you know, musicians and artists,
yeah,
like hearing that you're not always being fucking prolific, you know, like you're not always like got something to fucking promote. It's nice to just be like, you know what,
yeah,
who I am. Here's what's going on. Here's how I'm thinking about things. I think one of the most beneficial parts of our conversation that we had today was like kind of hearing like the intention and genuine awareness that you have both in your personal life and how that connects to like your music life and like how after all these crazy experiences you've had it's still like the product and the journey is still really important to you. Like you're not just like trying to make $1 million, you're not just trying to like be the cool guy that's trying to act cool and be cool. Like you're just being here's who I genuinely am. And like that's
yeah.
always good to hear. So that's I love that you're taking your obsessiveness and your discipline and you're kind of spreading that software to all parts of your life, including your relationship, including your daughter. Like that's beautiful. That's the way
Mhm.
to do it, man.
Yeah. The only thing that matters to me are my relationships and my art. And I'm making sure I'm as healthy as I possibly can be mentally and physically so I can do both of those things to the best of my ability.
Yeah.
You
So
know, all that matters to me really is like the time I spend with my daughter and what's coming out of the speakers, dude. You know, I know I keep saying that, but that's all that there is now.
yeah, man, love that, brother.
So yeah,
Let's
yeah,
dude, let's try to make an effort to talk more.
sweet.
I'll end up on a super vulnerable note, and I'm like borderline not saying this because I don't want to look stupid, but like
Mhm.
glad that we were able to connect when you were here recently because like I feel like whenever you've been around, there hasn't been as much of an effort to connect, and I get that's my insecurity and that's my ego, and like Chelsea always reminds me like what you said, like Jay, he's on tour, he's fucking exhausted. You're like one of 4 million stops. Totally get that. But the fact that we're able,
Yeah,
the fact that I, as an insecure artist, am able to like
yeah.
revalidate that, like, okay, I'm still your buddy, and like I appreciate that, man.
No, 100%, dude. Well, and then also it's just like when this is another thing I'm realizing about myself too is me on the road and me at home are two different people. When I'm on the road, I'm not very happy, dude.
I
You
get that.
know, I kind of get into my little area, I do my job and I grind it out because I'm missing my daughter and my wife so bad that I can just barely even deal with it.
Yeah.
So I'm not really thinking about calling anybody. I kind of don't even want to see anybody most of the time. And the people that I figure I want to see, they're gonna be there. And you're one of those. I just know. I just always figure you're coming. You know what I mean? And then I always figure like with the Downs family are coming whether I want them to or not. They're showing up, right? And but I do want them to. That's just a joke. And then there's just people that like the people that I've connected with over the years that show up every time. They just kind of do. And I think I just figure that you guys are coming, you know, and but a lot of that's on me too, because like, dude, sometimes I wake up on the road and I just I don't want to be there. I don't want to play. I don't, you know, it's like it's like I'm in purgatory so I can pay my rent.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not that I don't love everybody, dude. Everybody I'm involved with are like, I would take a bullet for most of these dudes, like really, you know. And I'm just so I feel really blessed too that for all the work that Donovan's thrown me over the years and all the things that he's like, you know, I've gotten to see through working with him. And on this last tour with G Love too, it's like those guys are all just rad and inspiring in their own ways, you know. But like, dude, I just kind of like I lay really, really low, especially now that I ain't drinking, because I'm definitely not going out with anybody. I don't even want to go to dinner. I don't want to do anything, you know. So
I get that, man. I get like social hangovers when I'm around people for like more than a day or two. So I can't imagine what you're going through. I would probably works for sure.
It's a lot. I mean, I'm used to it because I've done a lot. I got a lot of experience doing it, but yeah, it's not easy. I mean, I'll be calling my wife every single day and she's just hearing the same thing over and over about how I can't wait to get home and how it's just like ripping me apart that I haven't seen my kid and all this. So
yeah, I'm not happy.
But you know, whatever. Yeah, but I'm glad you showed up too, man. And you know what's funny is after I talked to you, I was like, dude, I wish I could have hung out with Jay more. You know, but whatever. I'll see you next time I'm there, and we'll hang out on these whenever you want me to do one of these. Cool. I was thinking about maybe doing one, and I'll have you as a guest on mine if I do.
You know what? Cool. It's a fun opportunity to give yourself an excuse to do this kind of thing. Like I've not made like penny from doing this, but it gives me an excuse to like to talk to people that I like to talk to. So for that reason alone, it's worth it.
Yeah. And people watch.
Yeah.
People watch. Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
the ones it's totally worth it, man.
Yeah, the ones that have interest watch, and that's what matters, you know.
Yeah, but, totally.
I have to go get the kids, brother. So I have to run.
All right, brother.
Appreciate it. Send love to Ron.
Thank you, man. I will.
All right, brother.
I definitely will. Thanks for having me on. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
appreciate you.
Hey, brother.
All right, bro. Later.